Okay, looks like we're ready to go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How was everyone this morning? It's 9 a.m. Well, it is here in the UK, in London, that is. So it's the start of our workshop. Let me kind of get a couple of screens in play. So I'm just going to grab my presentation. Let me get that kind of underway. Just make sure that works. It does, so excellent. All right, we'll come back to that in a moment. So good morning, good morning, good morning. We have quite a few people registered for this event, so we should have people kind of probably streaming in the next kind of 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe over the time. Now, you will notice that you're all muted and the camera's off. That is done on purpose. It's quite a large gathering for this workshop. We've got a webinar as opposed to a normal Teams meeting for our training for today. I'm going to do some introductions, kind of explain who I am. If you've not come across me, you will notice I have a little bit of a cough going on this morning. So managed to pick something up this week. Lovely weather we're having. So there's a nice cold kind of being shared amongst everyone. So I managed to pick that up. Hopefully my voice will flatten out a little bit and I'll be good to go once I kind of get into the flow a little bit. But we'll see how we go on. Take lots of liquids as I go through. So I may have to stop every now and then for a little kind of breather so I can knock off. So I'm going to introduce myself. As you can see from the screen, my name is Neil Hambley. I'm going to be your kind of instructor, your trainer for today. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm a Microsoft MVP. So I've been training people for probably 5 or 6 years now. I've been MCT for the last 5 years, and I pretty much spend most of my time sitting in front of my elaborate setup here, training people online. We decided to do a SQL workshop because this is one of the new ones that the SQL team have recently put out. I was speaking to my good friend Woody and Bob and Anna at the past summit. Well, Buck wasn't there, but I've had a conversation with him this week, and they're looking to really get the news out about SQL 2022. So there's a workshop they've developed. I'm going to show you how you can access all the resources. We've even put together a complete course on our website, which I'm going to show you how you can access. Again, completely free. You'll be able to kind of go in there, and it's going to track all your progress, has all the instructions, all the links, all the files, etc. you need, and you'll be able to kind of walk your way through that. And what I will be doing in addition to what's already there now is from today's training and from additional recordings probably I'm going to do next week, probably primarily due to my voice not really being in perfect condition right now. Excuse me. And kind of bring that mic a little bit closer so I don't have to speak quite as loud. Do apologize. Hopefully it will warm up the vocal cords in a short while, then I'll be a little bit better. So I'm going to do some recording, some videos, and some of the exercises, demos will also be kind of recorded probably separately, where my voice is in better form. And I'll be adding those to the course as well. So I'll be adding additional content and materials to the course in the next few days. Excuse me with my voice, it will warm up. I do have my lemon sip handy and plenty of liquids. So I would say I'm kind of an MVP, an MCT, training people all the time. And we want to kind of show you what's in the SQL Server 2022 kind of latest release, which obviously kind of got released to us a few weeks back when we were in the SQL Summit, also the PAR Summit, and they released the SQL 2022 release, their GA release, kind of putting it out there. And there were some great sessions around that new release at that PAR Summit. And one of those also was they were doing that workshop, and it went down really well. And I'm going to show you all the resources. I'm going to show you how you access all of that. A little bit of history about where I am today. So I founded my own kind of training and consultancy company about 6-7 years ago. And I say most of the days I spend my time training people on the data platform and Azure. So it kind of works in really, really nicely with this training because SQL Server 2022 is that most Azure connected version ever to be released. So we're going to be kind of bringing that in and showing you all the capabilities, the new versions, the new kind of things it can do. There's a whole bunch of hands-on capabilities, and I'm going to show you what we have there. At the end of today, we will probably kind of advise you a little about what we got coming up in 2023. Can you say 2022 there for a second? 2023 for our trainings, our additional kind of free offerings that we're going to have. So we're going to have some cool stuff to share with you. And there will be some emails that come out to explain all that as well. So one thing we are going to ask you to do a little bit towards the end is to give us a bit of feedback and maybe put a review on Trustpilot. So we've recently just kind of launched our Trustpilot kind of reviews for some of the courses we did back early in this year. And we'd love to have your feedback on how you have seen this training from today and any other training you've come across here. So we'll be asking that, we'll be putting that into a link into an email for you. So don't worry, you don't have to worry about kind of all the links and stuff. A whole bunch of links and materials will also be available. Now, to really make this life easy for everyone, because like, how do I get links? How do I get the deck? How do I get all of this information? We have a course for you. So I've spent pretty much a good part of this week when I have been in the office putting together this training resource. So I'll make it a little bit larger so you can see it. So you're going to be able to log into this, sign up for it, log into it, and it's going to track all your progress for all the exercises, all of the kind of materials that are in here and see what's there. So it's a very useful thing for you. I'm going to explain what the workshop is, the 7 different modules that we have available that we're going to cover in the presentation today. We got links to the materials that came from. So the original SQL Server team produced this workshop. We, as a kind of a very interested and MVP and MCT and friend of the team, have said that we wanted to do a delivery of this, and they were more than happy to kind of give us the thumbs up to go ahead and do that. So hence today's training. Unfortunately, voice is not quite in the perfect condition, but I'm sure we'll manage as we go through today. So we're going to do a quick intro to SQL Server 2022, kind of some of the new stuff, high level kind of introduction to some new capabilities. And then we're going to go a little bit more deeper into the product itself. So we got kind of 5 modules, modules 2 to 6, that we're going to cover some more in-depth capabilities there. So we're going to look at connecting SQL Server 22 to the Azure ecosystem. So how do we make use of those services in Azure? How do we kind of manage and leverage all of these? I mean, we could be running at a VM with SQL Server 2022 in there, but we could also be outside on premise as well, kind of running our SQL 2022 instance. We're going to talk about some of the really cool, great built-in new query kind of intelligence capabilities. So making it run faster and better out of the box without you having to do anything. Sit back, turn on the condition, and off we go. We can kind of have the new capabilities ready to go. So I'm going to show you some of those. About a week or 2 ago, I did a 1-hour session on degree of patterns and feedback. So it was 6 back-to-back 1-hour sessions run by the Malta community group. And I think it was like a Saturday week before last, and I was the last session, and I did the degree of powers and feedback. There is a video coming. They will release that to me once they've got it kind of prepped and ready, and I will be adding that into this training materials as well. So as soon as that video and all the other videos that I'm going to be preparing for this course. As they become available, I'll be adding them in. And if you're part of this course, you'll be able to then get notified when those materials get added in. So that's going to be really cool. Module 4 is where we talk about what we call often kind of referred to as kind of the meat and potatoes, is the security, scalability, availability of those services. So what's new in this area? What can we do? And there's actually some really amazing new stuff that got released for SQL 2022 there. Take a little sip. Now, we know kind of virtualization of data and reporting and kind of management of data is a really challenging part of our roles when we're DBAs and developers. So some of the things they've done with accessing new sources and making that a much easier kind of landscape to navigate and to communicate with your data and leave some of that data where it is and go and move your virtualization to that makes life amazingly evolving in terms of capabilities of the service. So we can explore what we have around that as well. And of course, not forgetting our T-SQL capabilities. So what do we have in the new T-SQL kind of toolbox? So we're going to explore that as well. And we have a bunch of exercises and materials that we're going to go through. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly show you what we have. And then, oh, by the way, we summarize and close out the session as well in module 7. Okay, so let's go show you what we have in the first of those, but I'm going to just quickly run through a couple of the kind of what this kind of workshop is and what our focus is. So here's me just kind of if you're interested to know a little bit more about it. 25 years experience, lots and lots of different roles around SQL Server. Started with SQL Server version 6.5 back in 1998, something like that. And I was using and running a global team around using SQL Server 7 and 2000 from the year 2000 for about 5 or 6 years. So I had a lot of fun doing that. But as I've gone through different roles, developer, kind of consultant, architect, and then kind of primarily kind of in the last 7 years, migrated to training resources, and I spend pretty much my time just training now around those technologies. So I've trained thousands of users. I've been into so many countries, I've probably forgotten how many. I've been to pretty much all the main continents, apart from Asia. Really, I haven't really touched the Asia market yet, so that's one for me to explore. But I've been things like Australia, South Africa, all across Europe and UK. God knows how many different places in the US I've been to, probably about 50 or 60, probably done most of the states in the US in terms of training and resources there. So that's kind of me. And the workshop goals is what are we looking to do around this specific training? So we're going to do a what's new kind of approach to showing you what's inside of SQL Server 2022. And then we're going to kind of give you some rationale, some reasons why moving to that latest version makes sense. Why should you upgrade? What do the benefits come from that? We're going to look at some specific features. So we're going to look at specific features. We're going to show you how those work. Excuse me. We're going to show you how those work. We're going to explore the details. You're going to get hands-on experience. You have a whole bunch of exercises. I'm going to show you how they're laid out at the moment, and that will allow you to kind of try out, test the new features without having to try and figure out how do I test this. We've got demos and exercises already pre-done that are going to help you understand how to approach those. And to say there's a bunch of resources and links to walk away with it as well. It's really going to help you kind of take to understand the capabilities of that new product. So that's what the goals of this workshop is about. It's all about showcasing the new capabilities and how we can make use of those in our environments. I do apologize about the voice. Apologize. It will we will hopefully improve. So how are we doing this? Well, we have this session today. It is being recorded, so there will be some editing done at some point down the road, and I will put specific kind of videos into each of the modules related to this as well. Now, this is a workshop that's designed to be either self-paced, so you can kind of get all the materials and you can walk through this completely by yourself and just kind of follow the instructions and understand what's there. And there's some great materials already kind of laid out for you. The alternate one for that is an instructor-led, which is what we're trying to do today. So the main difference between the instructor-led version and the kind of self-paced one of the primary kind of benefits of that is you can ask lots of questions. I will try my very best to answer those as best I can. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. So I can go to the product team, I can go to the SQL Server team, I can go to Bug and Bob and Anna, and I can talk to them and say, hey, look, I've got this question on this workshop we delivered. Didn't quite know the answer at that point because some of it's quite new, etc. So how do I answer this? And I'll be able to get the answer back to you. So feel free to post in your kind of questions. I will be kind of collating those throughout today's training. I will be putting those question answers into the training resources as well. So when I come into this training resource, I will also have some additional, these are the questions, these are the answers, and we kind of create an FAQ as we go and develop that over time. So as people can kind of, as you come in, you can kind of, you know, put a comment in the module, etc. We can come and collect that, and we can also add that to our FAQ over time. So this is going to be something that, although you're going to use it today primarily, you know, you can come and continue to use this and come back to this, and it's going to evolve over time. So there's a little bit of, excuse me, there's a little bit of preparation work in terms of setting up how do you kind of do these exercises, how do you kind of go through these kind of activities that we have. So one thing we can do is we can actually go and kind of spin up Azure. So I'm going to have some, you see some resources I'm going to show you in a bit, where we created an Azure SQL database. We created, an Azure SQL 2022 installation on a virtual machine. I put that in Azure. I've also created a Synapse Analytics workspace, and I'm going to be connecting the two. We've also got additional resources that we can kind of provision inside of Azure. Now, to do that, you need to spend a little bit of money. Now, clearly, it would be awesome if I could kind of just, provision loads of free resources for you. Unfortunately, my budget doesn't quite stretch to all of that. But what we can do is we can go and create or request some free credit from Microsoft. So there's some instructions in here to take you to, let me kind of just open this up in a new link and just kind of show you. We're going to kind of come into this link here, the Azure entry. So I'm going to put give you access to the resource in a second. So if you want to come in here and start free, you can essentially kind of request and sign up for some free credit, and you get $200 worth of free credit. That's in a 30-day window. Once that credit's used up, right, or if the 30 days has elapsed, any remaining credit you had on that kind of subscription will be kind of the subscription kind of ends at 30 days or whenever the money has been used up. But potentially there's some credit there. Now, you may have already used that credit before, so there's some conditions. You can only really kind of get them once. You might use a few different email addresses to try and kind of gain the system a little bit. I've done that with a couple of different email accounts, but it will be tied to a credit card. It won't be charged, that credit card, but you need to kind of register so that potentially when you convert your resources at the end, if that's something you wanted to do, they've got some credit kind of resource they can kind of link that to and then start charging. So you get this free credit, you can consume it. If you don't kind of do anything once it's kind of used, end of story, all gone. And I've used that many, many times before. Okay, but you will need to pay for kind of your resources somehow, and this free credit will help you with that. Let's go back to the which one was it? Oh, here we go. Find the screen again. So that was the free credit. Now there's a whole bunch of additional resources in the kind of course itself, like the different kind of blogs and etc. you might want to go and look at, and there's some documentation links as well. So this introduction is going to be welcome to that workshop, something about myself, the workshop goals, the live training, which is obviously today happening. We've got our to-do list, which is going to be kind of something you need to kind of work your way through, potentially if you want to do the exercises. It's entirely up to you. You can make that choice. Okay, so I'm going to do some demonstrations. I'm going to do something, but I'm not going to go through every single one of those. Okay, I'm going to show you the modules in a second, and in there we're going to have the exercises. So let me show you those actually next. Let me go to the module list. So here we have our introduction. Module 1 is going to kind of get us kicked off, and that's going to kind of explain what SQL Server 2022 is all about. And you see here, we've got pretty much a slide per kind of lesson, essentially. Let's call it a lesson, where we kind of have the same as we would in the deck. I'm going to bring the deck up in a moment, but these slides are also available one at a time through there. Now, the reason why we're also putting them here in this format with a single slide per lesson is that you can then comment on that. And what we can do over time, we can expand additional information. We can put additional videos in here. We can put additional text and content around the lesson itself. So this is kind of a starter for 10, where we're going to expand on this over time. And as new things kind of evolve and the product kind of evolves, this might also, excuse me, be kind of improved as well. Time for a bit of water. All right, so as we go through, we can kind of do that. Now I'm just going to go back to modules for a second, because module 1 does not have any exercises. It's kind of the intro. We're going to tackle that in a few moments. But module 2 is where we start doing the exercises. So let's go down a little bit further. You'll see that we have the instructions. Let's kind of make this a little bit larger so everyone can kind of see the screen a little bit easier. So for each of these, if I click on, say, this exercise here, we will go in and we will have the instructions, the prerequisites, any work you need to do to kind of prep up the environment and the information. So, for example, you might be doing a restore of this worldwide importers backup. I'm going to show you that I've done that example in a moment. And then you're going to do maybe kind of additional kind of change of the recovery model. You're going to do some additional steps. You might be running specific code statements. Now, all of these code statements are going to be in these zip files. So inside of each of the exercises, you will find there's a zip file with a download, and inside that zip file is all of the scripts that are referenced inside of this material. Okay, so you're going to have some easy access. I'm going to show you also where you can go to the GitHub repository. So again, let's make that a little bit larger. And we can come into the GitHub repository, and for example, we can see all of those exercises. So for example, if we were going to look at our exercise number 20, we go to the My Link directory folder. And this is where those exercise instructions are, as well as all the scripts that you can see here that are also listed. So we can actually see all the scripts. We can grab those. We can kind of run that restore script. We can run the create the master key. We can run the populate SQL and all the different steps involved to get us to preparing the environment and then performing these steps to undertakes that. So it's quite a bit of work that kind of sometimes these exercises are going to ask you to do. You can see here, there's a few steps in this one. This isn't one of the more difficult ones, or the longer version. None of these are really too difficult. They might be quite a few steps, but they're very well documented. So you kind of sit down and walk your way through the steps, understand what we're doing with the exercise, and be able to see the output of that. And I've run through most of these so far already previously, so I can see how simple these they are to actually follow. They do very, very well at doing that. And they say they can go through each of those steps to actually kind of get you set up. And here you can see even it links to sometimes the Microsoft documentation. So here we've got the documentation for preparing our environment for using a SQL Server managed instance. So I've got one of those provisioned up. That actually probably takes a couple of hours to do. So from the start of clicking the start button to actually having that provisioned, it's going to be a couple of hours. But then once you have it up, you can actually just go and follow the instructions to enable the service and configure it the way that you need to for the examples that we're looking at. So again, it's going to take you through all those instructions that you need, and that's going to be great to see. So here we got all those instructions. Once you've kind of finished that exercise, you can mark it complete, and then you'll be able to kind of go into the next kind of exercise there. So you can see here for module 2, I think we had 4 exercises. So 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. So there's a lot of focus in this workshop around doing these instructions. Okay, so I think we kind of covered a lot of the kind of content. Let me kind of show you how you get to those. So I'm just going to kind of grab this URL. It's going to do a private browser. Let's kind of just bring that up. So I want to show you what it looks like when you're new and outside of the thing. So you're going to come to this site. Let me just put that into the chat window, by the way. Okay, so if you come down here, you can then see that we have this workshop course. So click on that Get Course. It's going to bring you to this page. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And here you can then kind of sign up with an email account to get there. Once you're signed up, you can log in, and then you'll be able to look at that. So I'm just going to log in, show you what this looks like. We kind of just sign in with my account. And now I've got already kind of purchased. I'm going to take myself there. Oh, need to click the button. Actually, it doesn't go anywhere if you don't click it. Top tip there for you. So here's my workshop, and I'm going to go and view that product. So I can start my course now. And with this course here, I can actually kind of then kind of start with obviously the introduction. So this is what we're going to do now. We're going to go through and do the presentation in a normal presentation deck, but kind of all of the content in this presentation deck I'm going to show you is inside of this course. Okay, so probably go and sign up for the course, but I'm going to take you through the content right now. Okay, so let's bring up the presentation deck. All right, you ready? So, and we're pretty much dead on time. 9:30 is when I wanted to get to this point. So we are right on time, everyone. We will be looking to finish around about 4 o'clock today. I'm going to be around for a bit longer if you've got questions and you want to kind of have me hanging around, but I'm kind of aiming to finish around about 4. It's a Friday. I'm sure we've all got kind of places we want to be, etc. So feel free to ask questions as we go through. I will be stopping periodically to check those. I'm just going to kind of arrange my real estate a little bit. So give me a second so I can actually see if there's any. Okay, here we go. So let me get my chat window up. And I will be adding in polls as I go as well. So you will see polls that pop up. So the first one I put in is, what are your location and time zone? I wanted to get kind of a bit of an idea about where people were in the world. And I've got some people were in either UK, I've got people in India, Sydney, I've got Switzerland. So there's a whole range of people in different locations. So I'm amazing kind of there's going to be some people in some weird time zone hours. So welcome, and glad you're with us for this training. Let's say videos and everything else is going to be recorded. So kind of if you missed the beginning of the start of the video, you want to come back and rewatch it, we're going to have those in there for you as well. We'll have some additional polls that will go in throughout the training. So here's the SQL Server 2022 workshop. And this is from the SQL Server team. I'm just helping to provide a bit of context around that. So we'll reiterate the goals for the workshop. It is learn in the activity style, evaluate why you should upgrade, look at key features, get some hands-on experience, and then walk away with those resources. And in addition to what they provided, I'm putting this course kind of content together in the course environment that we have, the platform we recently just kind of provisioned. So you're going to have some good access, and that's free and it's unlimited in terms of time. So once you've recorded, once you've signed up for it, as we update that course, you're going to get notified of the changes there. Right, here's a recap about the 7 modules we're going to do. So module 1 is a quick intro. We're going to cover that next. Then we're going to look at Connect to SQL. We're going to accelerate performance with the query intelligence capabilities. We're going to get your scalability, security, and availability kind of up and running with some new capabilities there. We're going to look at data virtualization and some new storage offerings. We're going to look at the T-SQL new capabilities. So there's a kind of a whole bunch of new stuff there as well. And then we're going to round out, and I say there's some links to the SQL 2022 workshop, the main workshops around from the SQL Server team itself. So not just SQL Server 2022, but other workshops that they've developed as well. And there's some demos that we're going to be able to kind of access as well. So a whole bunch of kind of key things that we're trying to focus in on today. So let's kind of kick into the first module, module 1, everyone. So this is an introduction to SQL Server 2022. We will do that overview. We'll get you started. And we're going to do a couple of knowledge checks as we go through this training as well. So be aware that kind of towards the end of each module, we're going to have a little bit of a knowledge check to do just to see if you were paying attention during the session itself. Okay. Right. So here we go, everyone. Okay. Right. So introducing you to SQL Server 2022. Who knows the name of what SQL Server 2022 was? So, you know, kind of like when before they release it, they kind of give it a naming convention. So we've had Katami, we've had a few different ones over the years. Well, this one was called Dallas, and actually Bob Ward was the one who named it. He's a big Cowboys fan based in Dallas. So he was lucky to name SQL 2022, kind of the code name essentially for it, and it was called Dallas. So you might see a little screenshot there of, guess where that is, everyone? I'm sure you probably figured that one out by now. I've been there a couple of times. It is Dallas. So let's kind of see what we have. So SQL Server 2022 is the latest evolution of SQL Server. It's had many, many different prior versions. We've had our 2016, we had 2017, we had 2019. These are the most recent versions. We've had previous versions, 2000, 2005, 2012, 2008, 2014, you name it. So I've been pretty much through all those versions over time. So, okay, let's look at the chat window. I think we've got someone popping up with a question there. Dallas, well done. Yes. Yeah, that was kind of I didn't know that until I was at Past Summit last couple of weeks back, and I was speaking to Bob, and he explained it was like, wow. I kind of hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, that was cool. So we introduced a whole bunch of new features in that 2016 release. We brought in the new amazing query store capability. We introduced the kind of parallelism throughput capabilities called Polybase. We had always encrypted and RLS, row-level security, and it just went faster and faster. You kind of run your code and it just was quicker, better, kind of stronger. And also we kind of, we improved some of the capabilities in the standard edition. So we moved some of the kind of premium enterprise features down to standard as well. 2017 came around, barely a year later, and they added like the Linux offerings. We had containers. We've got some new capabilities around containers and Kubernetes in this release, 2022. We brought in the adaptive query processing. The engine was smarter. It could understand and could be more adaptive based on workloads that we were running. We had some improvements around automated tuning. So the engine can kind of look at its kind of use case scenario and kind of how it's being used and do some automatic tuning. Means out of the box we could kind of maybe do less performance tuning ourselves, or some of it's being done for us. We introduced the graph database, so especially in Cosmos DB, we've got something called Gremlin DB, which is a graph database. We have a similar thing, and they introduced the machine learning services. Now, there's actually some deprecation of the machine learning kind of server, not services, but the machine learning servers being deprecated in this release. So you would need to kind of add your own packages from a machine learning perspective, but you could run and connect to those Azure services. So actually it's an improvement in the machine learning world, but we kind of have removed kind of the server implementation, that the install of that. 2019, we had some additional new stuff coming in. So we added in or started the data virtualization. We leave the data where it is. We can virtualize it. We can kind of do external tables. We can pretend that the data is inside of SQL, but it's in maybe in a data lake or some other place. We can improve our intelligent query processing. So we went the adaptive query processing 2017. We went to the intelligent query processing kind of capabilities in 2019. And we're evolving on that in this release as well. Recovery of databases, so they did accelerated database recovery, ADR capability, so they could recover those databases faster and quicker. And we added in some classification services, so some labeling, sensitivity labels, that kind of stuff. So that was really kind of a good, cool thing for those releases. This 2022 release has taken all of those capabilities and taken the next step. Okay. So here is where we are really kind of with the range, the family, the SQL family, where we have SQL, Azure SQL Edge. We have that SQL capability, the engine, now deployed on the edge at the kind of IoT kind of side of things. Obviously, SQL 2022 is sitting there. We now have the capability of running SQL on Linux, containers, and Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is that kind of orchestrated containerization service, and it's an amazing tool and product. I do like Kubernetes, and it allows us to kind of provision our workloads and manage that on your behalf. We have our Azure Arc enabled server, which simply means that we're taking the SQL Server and we're taking the Azure kind of capabilities and we're bringing that down onto your own hardware. So the Arc enabled services there. So we have Azure Arc enabled managed instance. We have SQL Server in a range of different VMs in terms of the kind of market offerings and kind of different VMs that you want to provision. Of course, our SQL managed instance. So that's kind of SQL Server that was in a virtual machine, but we've kind of hosted that now in the Azure world, and we're doing some additional PaaS services and kind of management for you. So that's a really cool thing. And of course, we have our Azure SQL database offerings as well. So there's kind of single databases, those elastic pools, etc. So all of this is the intelligent edge through to the intelligent cloud. So we got all of the tools, flexibility, and kind of capabilities that you're normally used to seeing and made available to you, ready to go in our kind of range of SQL Server now across all these services. So this is kind of how it looks today. we can now connect very well our on-prem with Azure. It's basically kind of one and the same. It's just kind of like connecting the dots. Your SQL Server can be in any of those environments. We have the Synapse link. Synapse link essentially joins the dots between the Synapse analytic world, that's the data warehouse and the other services that we like, Power BI and kind of notebooks and Spark engines, to provide our SQL engine to our things like Power BI and be able to do a whole bunch of analytics and machine learning, those kind of capabilities, data warehousing. We have Purview integration as well now. So we've got one of these, the Synapse link and the Purview. There's going to be examples of modules where we go through exercises that are going to cover that as well. So we can look at what do we have, where's our data, how is it being used, what's the lineage on it, what policies do we have around kind of a control of that data in terms of sensitivity, etc. Ledger for SQL Server. Who's done what to my data? And we can extend that outside of SQL Server's world as well to other services. So we have that. In addition to that, we have the vulnerabilities, the security is being enhanced as well. So very, very, very secure. And we can also see exactly who's doing what. So we can manage our ledger. And we've got some stuff around ledger coming up as well. And finally, but by a big margin, not least, built-in query intelligence. We can make this thing, it's basically taken in for a tune-up. Your engine's going to run faster, quicker, out of the box. We turn it on, the new compat level, 160, it's going to fly. Now, this thing can do some amazing capabilities, but as you know, backward compatibility has always been a challenge. So we will kind of see what we have can turn on with this new 2020 kind of level of compatibility, the 160 release, and show you what we have available there. So we're going to have some scripts, some changes that we need to do to kind of turn on some of these new features. But you can just take SQL Server earlier version and deploy your 2022 release, put your version in there, and don't necessarily have to upgrade there and then, but you're going to get some of the benefits out of the box. But when you turn on some of these new features that require the 160 compat, then you're going to really kind of turn on the afterburners a little bit on this one. Yeah. So let's go and see what we really have around that. So what are the capabilities? So we're going to go through a number of modules. So module 2 is going to talk about the connected cloud. So how do we connect Purview? How do we connect our Synapse Analytics? How do we connect our SQL? How do we have this fully interconnected service in Azure connecting to our SQL Server 2022? I mean, that could also be in Azure, by the way, but you can have that on-prem as well. Module 3 is where we turn on the new features around better performance in terms of the engine, the built-in query intelligence. So there was some, we're going to show you some screenshots and stuff as we go through these slides, but essentially things like degree of patterns and feedback, the kind of sensitive plans. So having a scan plan, having a seek plan based on the parameter value that you're implementing there, okay? And some other new capabilities as well, okay? Say the kind of meat and potatoes, the security, the scalability, and the availability. What do we have new? And this is module 4, where we're going to explore all those new capabilities. For example, we can do a versionless restore of our database back on-prem. We never were able to do that before, and that's kind of an amazing new capability. I can take a 2022 database and restore it to an earlier version of SQL Server. Our virtualization, our object storage, we're going to be in module 5. This is where we're going to kind of show you how we kind of connect all the dots in that way, use some of the S3 new storage capabilities, for example, from AWS, and just kind of just take things to a much more improved virtualization and storage medium. And then finally, in module 6, we are kind of exploring and looking at the T-SQL, so the new capabilities that's in there, how we can use JSON, for example, and explore that. So module 7, by the way, will be the final kind of wrap up, etc. So modules 2, cloud connecting, module 3, built-in intelligence, module 4 is security, scalability, and availability, SSA, data virtualization, object storage in module 6, and then T-SQL in module 5 for that, module 6 for T-SQL. Now, in addition to kind of everything we've just gone through, you've got some new offerings in terms of where and how you can implement this. So how do we install it? So we can install it with either some scripts, some command line, or we can use a GUI interface. We have some package management for the Linux world. I haven't really spent any time in that one yet, so I'm going to kind of keep quiet on that one until I have the time a little bit to go through some content. You have pre-installed images, so marketplace images for containers, for those Docker containers. So how do we kind of spin up very quickly? We pick a package, an image, and we go. And we also have the Azure marketplace images for virtual machines. So we have images for containers, images for VMs as well. I say we support upgrades. We support the improvement to the Compat 160 level, and we can have side-by-side installations as well with earlier versions. With the new stuff, out with the old. So what they've done is they've improved some of the capabilities, and why they've done that is they've kind of got rid of stuff that doesn't really work as well now in this current kind of version. So some of the R, Python, and Java packages have been removed. Doesn't mean you can't go in and do packages, but you're probably going to do them in a different place than you were doing before. Same with Polybase Hadoop for Java connectivity, the scale-out groups as well, though. You still have Polybase, but you're doing it through an API call now, an ODBC instead of through that. I say the machine learning server, that's been booted, but we're now getting the machine learning services connectivity coming in. So we're going to replace the server with the services. Distributed replay, I used to spend some time doing sessions around distributed replay. That's been booted for a while. In the installation, it's going to come later in 2023 in a separate install medium. Wait to kind of watch this space kind of thing on that. Some of the deprecated features, though, is StretchDB. So because we don't really need that now as when we did before, because remember we're now doing that fully connected kind of Azure kind of and the SQL Server itself. So StretchDB was when we had some of those data sets put into a kind of Azure environment. So we kind of deprecated that, and they've added now the Azure extension for SQL, so we can use some of the new Azure capabilities by using this extension and registering for things like Purview, etc. Again, got a whole bunch of exercises. Excuse me for a sec. Not the best day to be doing training, but I didn't want to kind of hold us back from the training. So there will be other videos that will be less coffee down the road. So we've got some new feature selections. We've got the Azure extension for SQL. Again, you can make the choices of what you're going to include and not include, etc. So we've got a few settings and things like service principal and Azure logins that we can configure for this. This is what the Azure extension does, by the way. It's going to register you for a ARC enabled. It's going to give you things like Azure Active Directory authentication. It's going to give you Azure Purview and the Defender service for kind of supporting kind of your monitoring of your kind of workloads for security purposes. You're going to access your Azure portal. So lots of cool new capabilities using that extension. It basically is a under the agent framework. So we won't go into a lot of detail there, but basically it kind of makes use of the IaaS kind of extension for Azure VM, similar kind of fashion. And there's some additional kind of configuration and setup installation steps that we can do kind of post and after with kind of running scripts, etc. So you're going to install that, as well as actually being able to stop and start your extension service as well with the configuration manager. So in the portal, we can go to the config manager and we can kind of turn off and turn on those services there. So I mentioned earlier that we were going to do some new kind of deployments, and some of those deployments could be on a Linux kind of containerization, a Linux distribution, an additional container support, and that includes AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. So here we can see some of the new capabilities. There's some links there in that. The links also are going to be in those decks. And you can see here, it's usually aka.ms/ some kind of value. There's one there that doesn't have the / I just realized the very top one. So I'm going to correct the slide, notify the team that there's a missing / there, and off we go. But basically, some of these are currently planned. Some of them are kind of be investigated, some of the capabilities. So this will evolve. Remember, we're still in kind of that first GA release. So we've kind of only just released for the last couple of weeks. So kind of expect these things to kind of revolve and evolve over time in terms of capabilities. So what about our Azure SQL in a VM? Now I've spun one of these up. I'll show you how we do this. It's got some really cool capabilities. Some of them are still in progress though. So some are coming soon, watch this space kind of thing. But we do have a Linux and Windows variants of our marketplace images, and that includes both the developer edition, that's the one I've spun up, so there's no charge for the license for the kind of engine for SQL. There's a web standard and enterprise edition versions, but where you pay the licenses. So remember, developer you can't use in a production capacity, but in terms of like training resources and stuff like I'm doing today, perfectly fine. And for development of your code, etc., and that kind of stuff. We have the IaaS extension. We can turn it on, a couple of clicks, and we're ready to go there. We have our additional T-SQL snapshot backups. Now, what we can do is we can snapshot our backups, and we can do that with now an Azure Disk snapshot kind of support as well. So that's going to be really cool. We can actually have our kind of disk support or snapshots on a disk level actually also support the T-SQL backups. A few different VM size improvements. So they've added some AVX support. Don't really ever go into that myself, so can't really explore that too much for you. The portal experience has been improved. They kind of got more smoother, straightforward kind of designs for that, and say some upcoming things as well, which we'll have to wait and see when they get released. All right, so module 1, quick and straightforward, just kind of a quick introduction, quick high level. Let's see if you were paying attention. So question 1. Which of these is one of the major categories for SQL Server features? By the way, these quizzes are also in the kind of course as well. So if you go into the course, you'll see those quizzes as well. So which of these was it? A, Cloud Connected, B, Azure Arc, C, our body base, D, built-in intelligence, or A and D? So is it Cloud Connected and built-in intelligence? So which of these is the major categories for SQL Server features? Okay, one sec. Put that a bit louder, Neil. There we go. Answer being both Cloud Connected and built-in intelligence. Those are the major categories that we focused in on for the SQL Server 2022. So the next knowledge check is the Azure extension for SQL Server provides which capability? So is it Synapse Link? Is it managing disaster recovery? Or is managed disaster recovery, I should say? Is it AAD authentication? Is it going to be data virtualization or Azure Virtual Machine? So again, we'll kind of give it a couple of seconds, think about it, and then the answer being C. So we add in Azure Active Directory authentication. So remember, we've had kind of SQL logins, we've had Active Directory authentication. Now with the Azure extension, we can add in the Azure Active Directory kind of authentication method as well. Okay, so what did we cover in this module? We covered that it's Azure enabled and we can do things like disaster recovery, analytics, security, availability, all those kind of really cool stuff that we have. We have our built-in intelligence capabilities. So basically making the thing run better, out of the box, making no code changes. Just better. Okay. SQL Server availability has new improvements, new innovations around security, scalability, and availability. Virtualization and object storage, we have some improvements around that. We've got the S3 AWS kind of storage offering. We've got some data virtualization, new capabilities as well. And we've extended the SQL language with some new features as well, which we're going to look at in module 6. So this is what we did in module 1. Straightforward, up and running. Cool. So we're going to move into module 2. Before I do that, though, let me kind of escape out a little bit and go into the previous. So here's what we did in module 1. Just kind of show you that we have module 1 here. And this was all those slides from earlier. And we also have that knowledge check. And here you can do your quiz and you can then choose. So I think we were saying which of these are the major categories. So we were looking at A and D, and we were looking at that one here. Now I'm going to submit those changes and those answers, see how we get on. Okay, we continue. Ready, go. And we've basically got those answers. Now I'm not sure why that answer didn't show up as coming up back. I will go and check on that. I think maybe I need to make a change there. But you can go and see if you go back to that one, it should show you the answers on those as well. So let me just check that again. I think I need to turn something on here. Okay, yeah, so you should get the answers come back on that screen. So I'll figure out that one. So beware that's not currently functioning. My apologies, I thought I tested that earlier. Okay, so module 2 is all about connecting to Azure SQL. Now you see that we've got quite a few kind of slides to go through. And we've also got the instructions for the exercises. This is what I wanted to show you. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different exercises. Now, I'm not going to go through every exercise because 1, we don't have enough time in the day to do every exercise in every module to its completion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some time for you to make a choice of which one of those maybe you're interested in. So let's say you wanted to look at the Synapse link, for example. And in here, you can come in and then follow through the instructions that's going to give you all the prereqs that you need. And then how to set up the exercise. So if you were going to do this one, you would need to follow through and perform these exercises. Okay. So that's the example for the Synapse one. Let's go back to the previous module. The previous exercise. So the exercise I'm going to look at is not this one. Next module is. Oh, I already did that one. So let me go to next one. So 2.2. So you might be looking at, I want to do the Azure Active Directory. Well, that's kind of assuming that you already have an Azure Active Directory in play. So you may not already have one of those. And if so, this might be a bit more work for you to set up. But it's things like setting up your key vault, setting up your purview options, and kind of putting in your configuration values of your existing SQL Server. So you need to kind of go and do this one, for example. So we're going to get you some choices on which of those labs that you want to do. So let's kind of just go in 1 second. Let me kind of just refresh the screen. Okay. There we go. So I was just looking at one of my other screens there for a moment there, just to make sure I didn't have any questions coming through. Okay. So we're going to kind of, when we get to the end of exercise, or sorry, end of module 2, we're going to step and give you some time to choose to go through one of those exercises. Okay. I will be sharing some of my kind of examples. So for example, I have done, say, the restore of that database. I've done the kind of script that's going to kind of add in additional structures, and then kind of add in some new capabilities, add in some data. So these are the same steps, same scripts that you're being asked to run in those examples. Excuse me for a second. So if you want to kind of go and follow the instructions, this is an example of the, I've got Bastion running, which is connected to my SQL Server instance here. So I've just got a SQL Server demo machine, virtual machine, 8 CPUs, 32 gig of RAM running, and it's got SQL Server 2022. This came from the marketplace. So I'm going to show you how we provisioned this up earlier. So I've got a resource group that I created. And in here, I created this this demo virtual machine, and it created all the resources for me. In addition, I've added in a signups workspace as well, which I can see is connected here. And I've got a dedicated SQL pool. So we're maybe kind of later on, we're going to be connecting the dots between our signups and our SQL, and I needed these resources pre-built in order to demonstrate that to you. Okay. So we're going to get into module 2, and what we're going to do, we're going to do module 2, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have you do your lab in that. Okay, so let's get up and running with module 2. So what are we covering in this one? Again, let me just do some real estate management here, so I can kind of keep an eye on the other screens as well. Cool. All right, and actually, I'm just going to add one of the polls in right now. Just give me the kind of 1 second. Let's get one of those polls up and running. So I'm going to just launch this poll. Just want to get a bit of a gauge on what your current mood is. Are you in a good mood? Are you like, oh, it's Friday, thank God, I've had a week. I've one of those weeks. So me, I'm in a pretty good mood. I'm going to kind of just put my good but tired, because I've got this cold, and it's not fun having a cold. So basically, one word to describe your current mood. I've said one word. I put in 3. So use the word tired for mine. It's a bit draining today. So we're going to talk about SQL Server 22 hybrid, both on-prem and SQL Server working together. We'll look at master, or managed, I should say, disaster recovery using something called the Azure SQL managed instance. How we make sure that all is all up and working. We're going to talk about near real-time analytics with the ability to use the Synapse link. So turning on that Synapse engine connectivity and being able to do near real-time analytics against your data using the Synapse kind of environment. We're talking about some of the security hybrid capabilities, and we're going to do some knowledge checks as well on that. Okay, cool. So we've got some good content we're going to cover in this one, and at the end of this module, we're going to take a break, and we're also going to get you into the first of those exercise time blocks as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what we have. Now, these are the offerings we have in SQL Azure. We have our SQL Server on an Azure virtual machine. We have our Azure SQL managed instance, and also our Azure SQL database. So these are the current kind of offerings that we have in Azure right now, up until and before SQL Server 2022. But what we have is we also have some abilities to kind of backup to URL. So we had that before. We could have some storage account in Azure, when we could kind of do our backup from our Azure SQL database into a URL kind of pathway. We have some replication. We have always on availability groups. So we can kind of have our secondary kind of AGs, etc., and our secondary replication kind of places to be an Azure-based scenario. So those were really kind of cool capabilities. And this is kind of where we want to get to. We want to kind of be able to have SQL anywhere that we need, on-prem, in Azure, wherever it's going to be, kind of on the edge, whatever, and we kind of just run our workload there. Okay. Now, to do that, we would kind of use some of the capabilities. So Azure Arc enabled SQL is taking the SQL Server implementation installation that we have in Azure and make it available outside by doing an Arc enabled, basically kind of making those capabilities available outside of Azure that we kind of make use of when we're in the Azure world. So we kind of make it enabled to use that and run it on our own hardware, essentially. So things like assessments, things like Defender, Azure Active Directory, Purview, all of these kind of capabilities. Some of those are still kind of in progress and are coming, so we'll kind of wait for those to happen. But basically, yeah, we can kind of turn on some of these kind of capabilities quite well. Depends on wherever the SQL Server is deployed. So we've got this fully connected cloud offering. We've got our Azure SQL Managed Instance now being available as a replicated data failover from SQL Server 2022, and actually turning on the service capabilities inside that engine using something like SQL Server Management Service to kind of connect the dots and have that running. And yeah, kind of just really making this very simple to do. Something complicated that was before, and that's now become a lot simpler in implementation. We have our Synapse Analytics workspace. Where's our analytics? How do we run that, and how do we access the data that we need that could be in our SQL Server? And what about those changes? So, for example, what we can do is use, for example, things like Ledger and stuff, where we kind of start kind of virtualizing our data changes and that kind of stuff. So we got things like Purview as well. Purview is going to be the kind of like, where's my data? What kind of policies and standards do I have? What kind of information do I have about what's happened and where that's been used? Authentication. Standardizing things against authentication with Azure Active Directory is a big step forward. That's something we needed for a while, and now we have that fully kind of capable. And making use of things like Defender. You know, let's secure our data. Let's kind of look for those risk areas. Let's kind of protect our data assets. And so we've got all of these kind of additional capabilities like the DAC, the distributed availability groups. We've got our self-service or self-hosted integration runtimes. So for kind of run our pipelines, whether we're using Azure hosted or now also a self-hosted integration runtime, and integrating that with a link connection as well. We've got the Arc agents set for say our extensions, etc. So lots of cool, really kind of improvements around managing that data and accessing that data. So one of the key ones there where we looked at was disaster recovery. I've got my on-prem SQL Server. It's got my SQL Server in a VM, and I wanted to set up and do a DR site, and that DR site I wanted to have in Azure. That was a challenge. There was a lot of moving parts that you needed to kind of get up and running, and it wasn't a straightforward process. It could be done, doesn't mean it's going to be easy to do. So we wanted to make this a lot simpler and quicker and easier to do. So deploying and configuring with our PaaS services, our platform as a service. We wanted to potentially use our managed instance for read workloads or scale only, kind of scale out read workloads with managed instance performing that read capability there. Having built-in distributed availability groups. So that kind of having that capability, being able to restore the databases that are in a managed instance back to our SQL Server world. That was something that wasn't able to be done before. Now we have that capability. And failing back and forth between managed instance, SQL to managed instance, back forth. So if you needed that failover, we made that a much simpler process as well. So we wanted to continuously replicate the data between these environments, and basically you choose which is likely kind of your run to production environment at that time. When we talked about distributed availability group, what we're really talking about is different data centers, distributing those AGs out. So here we see we've got data center 1 for primary and secondary availability group number 1. So we've got one data center, it's got primary and secondary, and it's an AG. We've got a second data center with another primary and secondary replica as well. And this one, we've got that read option from the primary going to the read scale that's on that secondary. Again, we create a distributed availability group around both of these environments. Okay. And what that allows us to do is push all the log changes, all those data changes across into the relevant primary replicas, and then also seed that into the secondary replicas and have those kept up to date for those readable workloads being kept in near real-time capacity. So these are going to be some really easy, straightforward things we can do now with the wizards, with the kind of capabilities that we have that we didn't have before. Let's talk about now how we turn on kind of the managed instance link. So I've got my on-prem SQL. I've got my SQL in a managed instance capacity on the right-hand side here. And basically I've got my network that sits in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a availability group that's going to sit there on our primary. And we want to now kind of connect that availability group to our synchronous availability group that's in our managed instance. So we have this kind of link that creates the seeding, so set things up to start with, and then we've got our endpoints that are going to communicate all those log changes as they come through, and we can see then how that's going to kind of be sending that traffic from the primary SQL Server 2022 into the managed instance there. Those log changes are going to be sent over, and then we can kind of read that workload from the managed instance where we need to as well. So that's a really kind of easy improvement to the kind of scalability of our services there. Now, we want to make kind of the failover a simple process. How do we do that? Well, we're going to have a single kind of step inside of our SSS or SSMS wizard. So basically kind of use the SSMS. There's an 18 version, there's a 19, actually 19 preview 4 came out about 12 hours ago. So if you're using SQL Server Management Studio version 19, the preview 4 came out about 4 hours ago as well. And we can kind of turn on the process. So what happens inside of the service? It's going to do either one or two things. It's going to do either a planned failover, or we're going to force that thing over. So with plans, we essentially pause, we kind of stop the activities, the writes in the database. We are going to switch the mode from synchronous to asynchronous, from async to sync, I should say. We're going to turn on the DAG, the distributed availability group, to sync. We're going to make sure our LSNs, our log sequence numbers, are in sync and match up. we're going to remove the link to the managed instance, and then we're going to clean up our distributed groups, AGs and AG. So we've planned this kind of the process that we do with a force failover is basically remove the link and then do some cleanup. So basically it's kind of one of the other. Now with a force, you're probably going to potentially lose some data because you won't have if it may be LSN synced. But that's kind of one of the benefits or kind of downsides of that kind of force failover. Now, once you've done that failover, your database that's now on the managed instance is your read-write primary. Okay, at that point then. Okay, and then you're going to redirect the application to now talk to the managed instance instead of talking to the SQL Server. You've got to update your connection strings essentially. Okay, and then you might also mitigate or migrate, I should say, instance level objects to the Azure SQL Managed Instance to kind of keep the instance level stuff in sync and kind of do that migration of that workload as well. Okay. So that's kind of the kind of turning on the failover to the managed instance from the SQL Server, the hybrid kind of failover. Now here we're talking about version compatibility. So I mentioned earlier 160 is the latest SQL Server 2022 compat, but we have earlier versions. So we have the 15X version in the 2019 version of SQL Server. So we got our database. Maybe our database internally is version 904. And our latest Azure SQL Managed Instance is going to be a later version number, say 945. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is, let's say we're going to use this backup that we have. We're going to run that upgrade. So when we restore the database, it's going to look at the internal version and go, oh, you're 904. Actually, you should be 945 now, or whatever the X number should be. And it's going to do an internal upgrade. Remember, upgrades generally are one-way traffic. Once you upgrade, you can't go back to an earlier version. So we usually get this warning. Sorry, folks, your version is incompatible. This is running version 15. We need to kind of have a different version. So kind of we get this kind of incompatibility level thing. So we're going to deal with that problem. So database version does not necessarily equate to compat level version. So compat is the features that we want to turn on at the engine. The database version is the version of the database design that's been kind of maintained at. So when we kind of look at kind of improving areas of that performance, or what we can do, rather, I should say. All right, let's talk about the offline disaster recovery. We have our SQL Server 2022. We have our managed instance, and we've got that kind of new compat of 2016 or 2022 rather, version 16. We've got an internal version of 957 now. Now we're going to kind of do these activities with an offline activity. So we're going to stop our workload. We're going to create a copy only backup. So we need to have the copy underscore only kind of mile-lined parameter in there on our backup. We're going to restore that version back to SQL Server 2022. Okay, so we now lock that in with the version, the compat version, and sorry, the database version, I should say, of the RTM that is SQL 2022. We're going to migrate the the instance objects as well and redirect our app over to 2022. We will create our new link back to the managed instance. So we're going to kind of, well, it says doing a demo here. Now, this is, we've got a demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the video that, that we have around this that kind of showcases. And then we're going to play that video. It's maybe 10, 12 minutes long or something like that, from Buck Woody and the mechanics kind kind of Azure Mechanics video team. So let me kind of bring that up 1 second. So here we have, I think this is the one that we are looking at. So let me see if this is the right one. So this is disaster recovery. So this is the one where we're looking at managed instance failover restore example. So let me get this full screen and let me play that. Let me kind of make sure the audio's all the way up and it's in the right settings. Yep. Okay. Good. Here we go. Okay. So it's 13 minutes. Okay. So I'm gonna go quiet and I'm gonna show this for you. Okay. Awesome. So hopefully you all saw or had a chance to watch that with audio as well. I'm not sure what's going on with my audio not working through the service at the moment. So apologies for that. We'll just have to give you the links instead. Okay. By the way, these videos are also inside of the course as well. So you have those. I saw a couple of questions come through that I didn't have a chance to answer earlier. So does Purview replace the Azure data catalog? So in a way, yes, it does. It's basically given us more kind of capabilities around cataloging, understanding, excuse me, where data is, how it's being used, etc. Apologies for the coughing there, everyone. Do we have a lab covering how to set up DR in the cloud with SQL managed instances? Yes, you do. So let me show you kind of what that looks like. So let me go to my my modules, and the one that you need for doing the disaster recovery with Azure SQL managed instance is module 2. So that's kind of going to module 2, and then we go to the instructions for the exercise 2 link feature for managed instance. That's pretty much what you just saw kind of Bob Ward kind of explain showcase. So let me show you quickly a little bit. If I go into my environment here where I've got SQLServer2022 installed and a restore of that, if I come down, I can actually do that replicate database to my managed instance. So here, this would now be asking me where my managed instance is. Now you notice that I don't have all of the kind of prerequisites already prepped. There's a couple of things like a couple of trace flags I need to turn on. I need to have always on enabled. So I need to go and do a few more setup bits, which is why I've not done that demo myself, because there's a couple of more bits. But this is where I would go and choose set which database, which managed instance, what my AG options are, etc. I could do that here. So that exercise that you have in exercise 2.0 will actually cover that for you. Okay. All right, let me cancel on that. Plan failover to MI can use to migrate. Yes, you could use kind of a so once you've kind of set up your link to managed instance and you've got a seeded copy, by doing a force failover, that's a way of actually kind of taking that database and putting it into managed instance and then kind of having that then become your primary. So that's one way to look at doing a migration, for example. Okay, so I think we kind of covered all of the questions. There's a few notes about not hearing the sound. My apologies, I'm not sure why that wasn't working today. All right, so let me go back to the slides and bring it back up. So this is where we were. We were looking at that linked feature for managed instance. We looked at demo. Okay, so we've got a little bit more to cover, and then we're going to take a break. So we're going to talk about the Synapse link. So we've talked about managed instance being linked to the SQL. Here we're going to talk about connecting the dots with Synapse here. So moving data is both expensive, takes a lot of time, is always been a challenge. I know, I've been there, I've done it. So what do we need? We need to get our data to be analyzed and to be kind of available as close to near real time as we need it to be. So we need to kind of turn on the features to be able to do this. So here we can see, excuse me, we can see on the right hand side, we can see our Synapse Analytics kind of workspace, our service. We can see that we can also communicate and use a connection to, say, the Azure Machine Learning Service. So we can zap a link again from Synapse Workspace into the Azure Machine Learning Services. And then we can integrate and work with then our experiments and everything else that we have provisioned there. On premise, we have our SQL Server database. Now, inside of a Synapse, we can have something called a SQL pool. I have one of those provisioned up already, a dedicated SQL pool. There is an ad hoc one as well. We can connect to and work with our data that's in our ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage. And we also not only have SQL pools, but we have Spark pools as well. So we have our Spark Engine pools. So there's different Spark versions. And potentially Power BI, but also can be kind of linked and connected. So I connect to a workspace that's in Power BI, and I can use and access the data in those data sets in that workspace, and also kind of run my reports there directly inside of Synapse, and even do additional analytics, etc. So I'm kind of bringing all that together, and we can see here that's how we can kind of turn on that feature set. So how does this work? So you see with 2022 SQL or with Azure SQL Database, both of those can have a connection to the Synapse Analytics space. We will have a workspace in Synapse. We will have our dedicated SQL pool that we provisioned and set up. We'll have some ADLS. We call it a landing zone where the data is going to be kind of temporarily hosted and landed. We can kind of process that. We can do all the data changes through that. We will have something called a self-hosted integration runtime, and essentially SHIR, I should say, our SQL Server database, excuse me, our new improvements for change feed management, and say similar kind of offerings or capabilities with the Azure SQL database as well. So how do we do this? So essentially, here's our databases in our Synapse, in our SQL. We're going to create our Synapse workspace. We're going to turn on our dedicated pool. We're going to create that if we haven't already. We're going to ingest with the integration runtime service. We're going to have that link service to SQL, and we will have our landing zone where the data is going to be kind of being placed essentially. So we can decide kind of what that looks like, what we're seeing kind of. It's basically a series of Parquet and schema files that are going to be kind of controlling that. So all those files get kind of created, and then they get put into a kind of a snapshot version of that database, a table snapshot. Any new changes that come through are logged, and we have a change feed being generated. So we create these kind of these changes. Potentially, we can then have additional connectivity to something like Power BI there. Okay, so that's kind of that's the Synapse link. That's kind of roughly how it works. I'm not going to go to a lot of detail. This is an exercise for you, which you can go through yourself that covers through those examples. So I'm not going to go through the demo. I'm going to leave you that exercise 2.1 to review yourself. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look at the security stuff that we can do around this. So we know we got Azure Active Directory. We can do authentication with that service. We have our purview, and we have Defender for Cloud. These are Azure services that we want to make use of. So I need basically to add in that additional authentication method. I want to do Azure Active Directory. Okay, so going to add the extension. that's going to give me that registry configuration value that's allowing me to do that. And we can turn that on inside the portal or with some command line tools like PowerShell or Azure CLI, etc. We are logging in now with the Azure Active Directory. Awesome. We can do secure authentication now. We got the RBAC role-based access control kind of security permissions that can be applied. We have things like multi-factor authentication. I can now take my phone and I can do MFA on that security. So it requires the extension and also requires link server support. So we got that kind of login. So we do the extension, we do Azure Active Directory login and make sure we got one of those, and then we can log in from the SQL Server itself to that. That itself is going to kind of talk to either SQL Server 2022 or a specific Azure VM. Again, kind of waiting for that to be released at this point in time again. And again, similar, we have integration with the Purview. So this is our governance service. This is kind of doing those policies and controls around where data is and what we can do with that data, what lineage and what dependencies exist. Okay, so we basically want to scan our on-prem SQL server and capture all the metadata that might exist in those services. We want to classify and use our information retention sensitivity labels. So we want to kind of label it as kind of highly confidential or whatever it might be that we want to have that specific label at. We're going to do our dependency and lineage capabilities on that. And we want to have specific controls around security and access to that data as well. So kind of these are some of the things we can do with our Purview integration. Okay, now we can do this via what we refer to as an access policy. So we can kind of define the policy, define what kind of permissions and kind of policies we want to have on that. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details. Again, we've got a specific service, and also this is currently read only, but there will be modified capabilities coming later on, and things like DevOps as well. We can kind of start doing a lot more control around all of that. So this is how we do it with access policies. The architecture for that is something similar to what you'll see on the screen on the moment. So we have our Purview and Active Directory in the Azure world. We have our on-premise. We've got an extension to connect the dots. We've got our policies in play. We are having a localized policy cache inside of SQL Server 2022. So basically we are reading the registry, reading those policies and creating a localized version of that policy, and then caching that in some metadata in the system tables. And we will connect and access that through the AD. Now, again, there is a exercise that goes through the details of what that looks like. So again, we don't have time to go for every exercise, otherwise we need a couple of days at least to probably do all this. But if you want to look at that specific access policy example, it's exercise 2.3. Again, all of that's in your course and in the links to the main course itself. Right, so the final kind of bit here we're going to look at before we kind of round up this module, and we're going to take a break then after that, is we're going to talk about Defender for Cloud. So here you can see that we've got a kind of a quick and easy way to enable the Defender service against our entries. It will look for those problem connections. It look for people kind of trying to attack the services. It look for suspicious access or IP addresses that are normal, kind of like what kind of Defender services we would have in the Azure world. We can kind of bring that to the SQL 2022 estate as well. So we get these alerts, we get these vulnerability assessments, etc. We're going to potentially remediate that with the Azure Sentinel application service, so we can have some automatic response, can block in some whitelist and that kind of stuff. So cloud native security posture management with the Defender service. We have the ATP, event advanced threat protection, so kind of those kind of workloads that could be harmful, and we can centralize and do that with integration with Sentinel and Purview as well. So really kind of taking a lot of kind of additional security steps and enhancing our environments with those Azure PaaS services. All right, a couple of knowledge checks, and then we'll kind of get into a break. So first question, the link for managed instance feature is supported on which SQL Server versions? Okay, so is it 2016, 2019, 2022, or is it just B and C, or is it A, B, and C? So which of these is the correct answer? Okay, so in the first one, it's actually all three. So basically from 2016 onwards, we support all those versions, 2016, 2019, and 2022 for the managed instance support. Okay. The next question is, SQL Server sends changes to Synapse Link to what location? So remember we talked about the different kind of service kind of areas. We've got SQL pools, we've got our landing zone, we've got something called Azure Data Factory, we've got a link service or link connection. So which of these will be the correct answer for this one? So again, that will be something we referred to as the landing zone. So this is an Azure Data Lake store that has kind of a container in there that we can kind of provision. It's going to capture all of those kind of schema and kind of changes and etc. So we're going to have these Parquet files, we're going to have the schema files, we're going to have the kind of manifests going into that. All right, final one. Azure Active Directory authentication allows users to be created without logins. Is that a true or false statement? So here we go. That one, my friends, is a true statement. So we can now do Azure Active Directory. Actually, we've got one more to go. And we can create those users, loginless users, essentially, in this case. And the final one is Purview policies provide access to SQL Server by what? Is it creating a login and then mapping the login to a policy? Is it creating a policy in the Purview based on an Azure Active Directory account? Is it creating a role in SQL Server that maps to that Purview policy? Is it creating a AAD login and add it to a policy role in the Azure in SQL Server rather? Or is it Purview scans SQL Server for logins? In this case, the answer is going to be we create that policy in Purview, and we will then base that on one of the Azure Active Directory accounts. Okay, so Azure policies provide access by having that policy based on an Azure Active Directory account. And this is what we covered in that module. We covered it's a hybrid environment. It's got DR or managed DR with the managed instance. We have Synapse for near real-time analytics, and that's the Synapse Link, that is. We have Azure Active Directory, and we need that extension for that. And we have our policies with creating logins or roles with Purview. So that was our module 2, everyone. All right, it's time for a break. Let me escape out the session. Let's go into our virtual break. It's going to set up our 15-minute break, everyone. So we're going to take a 15-minute break. We're going to come back at, actually, so let's say 11:15, everyone. Okay, so 11:15. So I'm going to give you a little bit longer, at 18 or 19 minutes. Go take a break. Okay, it looks like the timer has ended. So welcome back. I'm going to get rid of my my cough suite. I'll go back to that in a bit. All right. So we're going to continue where we were. I'm going to put into the chat window again the link for the course, because I think a few people missed that, and looks like there's some issues there. So let me kind of resubmit that. But for those of you who can't see it, let me kind of bring it up a little bit. So you can see here it's courses.beaconintel, beaconintel.co.uk. If you go to that link, courses.beacon.co.uk, you'll be able to sign up for the course that we have for this workshop. Again, I'll be emailing out the links again, so if you do miss anything from today, you're going to get an email notification out as well, so don't worry about that. But if you want to kind of play along, as they say, kind of today with the course, feel free to do so. All right, let's go back to where we were with the presentation. Okay. So we covered modules 1 and 2. We're now going to cover module 3, and this is about query performance, or acceleration, performance with query intelligence. So we're going to explain the kind of the query store, the improvements that we have to the query store. We're going to go and talk a little bit about the improvements with the different compat levels. So and then we got the exercises. So what we're doing is we're going through this module, and then we're going to give you some time to kind of review and have a look at the exercises, have a read through the instructions, maybe even undertake some of those exercises, or at least some of those steps if you wanted to. And then you apologize. And then we will be looking to kind of take a break after this module for lunch, because if you're like me, need some food. So, okay, what do we have? So, why is query intelligence or query performance acceleration and using the intelligence query processing kind of really important? What is the benefits? Well, if you ever done any query tuning before, it's a time-consuming step. I used to do a lot of it in my time. And I used to really enjoy it. I used to do a lot of that query tuning, kind of figuring out how best to improve the indexes and kind of the query plans and analyze them and doing lots of kind of analysis on that. So, but it's a challenging thing, and it's an expensive operation and can be very time consuming, sometimes with limited benefits. So what we needed to do was to kind of enable the engine to do a lot better in this respect. So what we have is Query Store, which is a service inside of the engine that captures, excuse me, I know it's annoying, the cough, I apologize. It's going to capture the query plan. Query plan is the operational steps that the engine takes to execute that query. So we capture the plan and we kind of make the query store able to be turned on by default. Previously, it was having something you had to do. All new databases, as they get created, will have this service turned on. It also supports now read replicas from the availability groups, or it will do, but there's a trace flag 12606 that's going to be required to make that feature enabled. We can also have what we refer to as query plan hints to kind of help with shaping and defining what the best plan is. So we can kind of use the query hints or store hints to shape our plans as well. And our intelligent query processing is going to be kind of just turned on and much better. So what do we mean by these additional capabilities? So what we're referring to is the feedback mechanism. So there's a couple of them. There's degree of parallelism feedback, DOP feedback. I did do a video for the Malta community kind of event that happened a couple of weeks back, a 1-hour session where I did some videos and some demos, etc. on that. When that video becomes available to me, because they're currently processing it right now, along with the other videos that they did on that event, I will then add that video to the course itself. So in the relevant section, you'll see that there'll be a video added to as content there. There's also something called the cardinality estimation. Now, query plans themselves are very dependent on figuring out how many rows of data we're processing. So the cardinality estimation feedback is kind of looking at the amount of rows that we estimated and the amount of rows that got processed, and kind of and figuring out how to adjust its plans accordingly. And there's something called the parameter sensitive plan. So previously plans were kind of when you first ran it, the first parameter value would be the version of the cache plan, as Bob explained in the video earlier. Now that could be say a scan type operation, and then later on a different parameter might be better suited with a seek type of activity. But previously we only cached one type. With the parameter sensitive plan, we're basically, the optimization there is we have now maybe both a scan and a seek version, and it will appropriately choose the relevant one there. So we've got some of these benefits that come with that, and you don't need to do anything, you just need to go to that compat level 160 to do that. So we turned on that. There's additional improvements around the changes. So we've got the approximate percentile, continuous and versions of those that we're going to have. We got the plan forcing, so we can say I want to use this specific plan for this query. So basically it helps with that compile steps and helps with reducing any recompilation overhead that we might have from that as well. That was in by upgrading to 2020. We had the previous compat 140 improvements and the compat 160 improvements as well. So the compat level will define what you can do, what features and what capabilities. So upgrading to 2022 gives us a couple of additional things. If we were at 2140, we have the feedback percentiles and the memory grant feedback persistence. And then with 160, we get these additional feedback options and the optimization for the sensitive plans as well. And these all requiring query store, or the ones that I'm highlighting are requiring the query store. And then we've got some additional kind of things that are taken care of. So better execution, memory grant feedback, deferred compilations, these kind of things. Again, I'm not going to go to all details because we just don't have time to do that. But essentially, you're getting some benefits with every new kind of compat level, every new kind of release comes out the door. Okay, so for query store, and again, some of these require a trace flag, but most of them don't. Turn on the query store for every new database. You will have support for read replicas with the 12606 trace flag, which you'll need to turn on and then restart the service. I think you do. I'm not sure if you have to restart the service for that trace flag. You will have the store hints to shape your plans, and you can do kind of, basically a place to kind of manage your intelligent query processing by utilizing the query store capabilities there. This is how the query store for read replicas kind of works. So we have our primary replica, we have maybe our read replica in a different database. We will have our query store stats that get generated in the primary service. And then basically we have a query store stats that are in the replica as well. The queries come into the replica and essentially we are kind of communicating with the primary replica as well. So we've got our kind of additional capabilities we saw kind of as we kind of add in the new features, etc. So one of the key ones there was the memory grant feedback that we got. I'll kind of just go back and show you. So the memory grant feedback is being persisted kind of in the service. So what that really does, it says how much memory this query is going to need to take to execute. Remember, that's a lot of that's based on the operators kind of how many rows we think there are. If we kind of get that incorrect to a certain degree, we could cause things like spills and other kind of problems. So too small a memory grant means that we might be spilling to temp DB. Too large a resource allocation means that we might have kind of just less effective concurrency in the system, but also we might have more waits that happen in the service when we're waiting for certain resources, etc. So, getting it rightly sized is the appropriate kind of way we do that. So with 2017 and 2019, we improved and kind of made this better. And we had basically a batch mode only, and then row store options as well. So I'm not going to do all the details. You can go into the documentation to get a lot more details about this. What we did is we basically improved the benefits of that, and we kind of worked out a basic, more consistent feedback method, and kind of just got kind of more improved kind of details about what that trend might be, and kind of and making sure that we kind of got the right sizing of that memory grant. So we kind of persist in that information into the query store and having that kind of work well. So it just kind of taking what we already developed and implemented and kind of making a better version of that. Kind of have these additional new capabilities that came in with simply the 160 compat. So once you've got your database, either a brand new one or you've upgraded to a 160 compatibility level, you have these additional new features. You have the PSP optimization, you have the Cardinality segmentation feedback, you have the DOP feedback as well. So for the sensitive plan, we showed this earlier in kind of our example with Bob. We had our query that ran. It got kind of cached as a scan. Next one ran is going to be, a seek. Next one ran is going to be a scan. But basically, we've now got kind of this one that is just an inappropriately type of plan, really, where we need to seek and we're getting a scan. So we're going to be a much slower optimization there. So we need to kind of be able to kind of separate these out and have them where they're going to be kind of using the right plan for the right kind of parameter. So this is kind of how it works. It works out kind of what the cache plan, maybe a seek with a lookup and a small memory grant, or a scan with a medium memory grant, or potentially a scan that requires a large memory grant. So we're kind of breaking out the plan and kind of the range of values and kind of the statistics, etc. So they're all having what we refer to as the same query hash. The plan might be slightly different in terms of the text, but the plan hash, query hash rather, is going to be exactly the same each time. Again, I could go into a lot more detail on that and kind of just kind of give you the high level view on that. So potentially that brings the question up: do we have, or have we removed the problem with parameter sniffing, that well-known problem of, I've kind of got a plan that's scanned kind of operators, and really I need to seek, have we removed that type of problem? Well, in most cases, yes, but we kind of don't get an optimal plan for all parameter values. So we do have a much better kind of example of kind of when that parameter sniffing would potentially have been a problem is no longer a problem, but potentially you still have some scenarios where that could be a problem. But generally, you've got a much greater opportunity now to get a much better plan that's going to work more, kind of consistently with the right performance you need. The problem with our cardinality segmentation model, the way kind of we're doing cardinality segmentation is, and that basically is two different models. There's what we call the legacy and the new type of CE model. So anything below 2120, which I think was 2016 or 2014, my memory can't remember, I think it's a 14 yet, is basically, we kind of need to make sure that we kind of do this better. So if you upgraded from 2014 and you had on 120, kind of you potentially still had some issues. You need to upgrade that compat level, etc. We were using things like trace flags, and we were kind of changing the legacy cardinality estimation setting inside of the engine. We were using things like query hints. So there are some workarounds, but they're not pretty. They're not kind of foolproof. So kind of you know, we had some options, but it didn't always kind of work out the way we wanted it to. So what we want to do now is basically we want to have a correlation between the kind of the value of Redmond Estates province ID. Is there a kind of a relationship? Is there a correlation, rather, I should say? So with the legacy model, or using a trace flag or one of the kind of plan hints, we had a full independence on that. We basically had the new model, the new legacy CE model. We had a parallel correlation, and with a hint or a trace flag employed, we were basically getting the full correlation. So how do we kind of how does this work? How does the feedback work? So basically, the optimizer is going to look for those repetitive queries and the patterns and the parameters using it. It's going to look at applying a query store hint. It's going to validate, did that include or improve or degrade the performance in any way? So basically, if it improved it, we might persist the query store hint. If it didn't, then we kind of track it out and not use it. So we can kind of use that that hint on subsequent executions, get better performance, better execution. But we don't have to keep that, and we don't have to always do that option. We basically have some rules that basically get kind of defined in the engine to kind of see if this is a better thing or not. Again, kind of just like out of the box, it's kind of just better, consistent performance. With the degree of parallelism feedback, this is kind of a new feature again in 160. We basically were trying to find a lower CPU overhead for a parallel plan that didn't degrade the performance in terms of time. So basically, less CPU requirements, but still having the right kind of execution query time. So we need that kind of query duration not to kind of go any worse, sometimes even better, but we needed a lower kind of degree of parallelism. So sort of 8 cores, we had to say 4 cores, for example. So this is how this works. The query gets processed. It will kind of look at the query stats. It will kind of find, is this an eligible query or not? If it is, it's going to capture that feedback. It's going to do a series of validation stages. So I have a video that's I'll be able to track out soon, goes through all this. Once we kind of have a stable kind of query feedback state, we can then kind of update the query store, and potentially that plan then can use a lower amount of CPU. So basically all queries will need to have a kind of degree of parallelism, have a long duration. It's basically trying to improve the amount of CPU that we're going to use there. So less CPU gives more CPU for other services, other resources. So if you CPU pressure kind of scenarios, then potentially this is going to help a lot. Factor out common weights, so we don't want to we're just talking about execution time of the query, not kind of any other weights that might be accounting, and we're reanalyze and restart the process again at recompilations. So there are a number of exercises, as I said, that you can go through that will help you with looking at either the parameter sensitive plan optimization, the persistent memory grant feedback is number 3. 3.1 is the parameter sensitive plan optimization. 3.2 will be the degree of parallelism feedback. So that was a little bit more challenging to do, but again, you will see some videos and exercises on that. So let's show you what we have on that. First, we'll do a couple of knowledge checks, and then we'll go and look at those exercises. So first of these is around query store being on now by default for SQL Server, under which circumstances. So create a new database in SQL Server 2022 with SSMS. Use create database in SQL Server 2022. Restore a Restore database backup from SQL Server 2019. Is it A and B, or is it restore a version compatible backup from the Azure SQL managed instance? Here we go. The answer is the first two. So we basically need either a new database with Management Studio or using create database in SQL Server 2020. So either of those where we're creating a new database. That is where that goes on by default. The PSP optimization can help with which scenario. So data is skewed and we use an ad hoc query within our application. Scenarios where more than one plan in cache would help restore procedure performance. Stored procedure performance using parameters and filters with the greater or equal to operators or all of the above. In this case, it's going to be that kind of one plan seek, one plan kind of scan. We want kind of maybe potentially having both of those. The cardinality segmentation feedback works by applying query hints in plan cache. Disables the legacy cardinality segmentation model. Recompiles queries where patterns are part of the CE model problems. Dynamically changes between legacy and CE model, or persistent query store hints for queries that improve in performance. There we go. So that one is the last one, persistent storage hints. So basically, when we kind of see a improvements, and we can maintain that hint. And finally, parallel efficiency is defined as dynamically calculating the best setting for the SP_configure. The lowest DOP setting for a query to achieve similar duration across executions whilst lowering CPU. A maxed up setting for the database that lowers the overall CPU for the system, or B and C. The answer to this one is B. So basically it's just the kind of lowest TOP value that kind of makes sense, where the execution is the same across, and we kind of have a lower CPU use it. Okay, so that is the module. So the query store we know is on by default. It also works with replicas. Upgrading your SQL Server 2022 will give you kind of, and any compat will give you the approximate percentages and optimized plan forcing, and then 140 and 160 will give you additional capabilities there. So we got 140 about memory grant percentages and feedback. 160 we get the parameter sensitive plan optimization. We get CE feedback, and we get DOP feedback as well. And yeah, kind of, yeah, there's some really good enhancements coming to the engine there. Right, so we're gonna, before we go into module 4, let's go and look at the exercises that we have in module 3. So escape out, and let's go to our modules. And we're going into module 3 here. So again, each of the modules have got the slides. Again, we kind of enhance on those as we go. But here's the 3 different exercises. So we look at the first one. So again, we've got all of the instructions. So here's one example. We're going to have a Civic database version. So we can basically grab that. By the way, if you go into this persistent MFG zip file, you will have the script that is needed to restore that database. Execute the setup SQL, execute stat SQL, have a look at your execution plan, execute the SQL query statement, You'll see the execution plan, you'll see kind of the graphical plan, what it looks like. You may see a yellow warning on the hash join operator in that plan. Excuse me. And if you expand that, you want to look at the memory grant information property value. There's a property there, it's called is memory grant feedback adjusted. In this case, there's no first execution there, so it means we haven't done any adjustment at this time. I do apologize, as annoying for me as it is for you, I'm sure. So we're going to now get the plan feedback, and we notice the output on that. We're going to execute the query again, and this time we get an adjusting value on the plan. We can get the feedback again, see that the kilobyte for the memory grant reflects the improved and better kind of sizing of that memory grant. We can then clear our pan cache, run the query again, and we can see the feedback is now using the information in the query store. So we can still have the yes adjusting. But remember, we cleared that plan cache and we ran the query again, but the hint is persisted in that. Okay, so that was that example. You might want to look at that one. Let's go and look at the other module, sorry, the other exercises. So this one was the parameter sensitive plan. So this is very similar to what we saw earlier when we were looking at the example for kind of Bob when he did his video. So we're going to use a specific tool that's going to kind of run some queries. Again, we need to restore a version of the database that's designed for this demo. So we've got the specific download database. Restore it, run the work, create the store procedure, execute the query, update the compat to 150, clear the store, etc. And then we're going to basically run these queries here to kind of get the details, get the scan, get the seek. We're going to look at things like the execution time, the stats time, for example, and see that kind of is a problem. We're also going to use perfmon to capture some processor time and batch request time information. I'm going to grab those. I'm going to run that. And again, we can see we went to the compat 160. So we went from 150 to 160 and ran these kind of scenarios again. We would see the improvements there. So again, you can kind of walk your way through that example. And the third one that we could look at would be the one I mentioned the other day, I mentioned that I did the other day, which was the degree of parallelism feedback. So again, we have to restore a specific version of the database. So we grab that latest one, make sure it's kind of a certain size VM. Grab that, restore this version of the database. Get everything set up, and then you'll be using something called extended events, a session in that to watch and evaluate the live data that's being run through the system to kind of that. You're going to run a workload that will potentially run for about 15 to 17 minutes, depends on your runtime. You will see some events being captured in the extended events session because we're looking for specific events. So when they come up, we capture those events. We're going to get some feedback on the degree of parallelism. I'm going to see kind of which ones have improved. So that's that one again, probably going to take you, probably 15, well, probably somewhere more like 25, 30 minutes to run that that exercise there. Okay, so those are the exercises that we can do in the free module 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to give you some time to go through and look at those and kind of maybe configure your environment to do some of that. We're then going to be taking a break. So kind of combining the exercise time and the break, we're going to take us through until 1 o'clock. Okay, so we're basically giving you 30 minutes to do the exercise and then a 45-minute break. Okay, so you've got an hour and 15 minutes in total to maybe kind of grab some food, do one of those exercises, do more than one of you if you want to do more than one. So these are kind of the, so let me kind of show you my, so this is the worldwide database that's been kind of restored. I think we have, let me get some properties of that. So it's not massively big, but it's about 3 gig size. There are some steps to actually make that much bigger, kind of to expand it in some of the exercises there. Okay, but this is, I want to go to, where's my query store? So this is where we're capturing the query store is being used. The query store has 500 megs worth of data, but that's set up at the moment to basically collect the information in the query store. I'm not going to go into too much other detail, but basically we have a kind of primary file, user data file, and a log file there. And the options are where we are in currently A1's 2016. So when they restored this database, it was stored as a 2016 130 compat. Okay, now part of your exercise steps are to increase this to the 160. So we will actually be doing potentially an upgrade to the 160 compat, kind of internally telling it we want to go to 160, and then that's going to turn on those new feedback mechanisms for degree of parallelism for the coordinate estimation and for PSP optimization as well. So but when you restore the database, that's literally you're at the 130 2016 version of that again. So I kind of wanted to show you those. So you can go through those steps. Now here I have my database, my resource group, and here I've got my virtual machine, which actually I've done we can kind of get here. I've got a Bastion connection. So I kind of you can see here actually kind of, you can't really tell, but it's Bastion. So I'm connecting to my service through the Bastion. So let me go to my OneStep database, virtual machine, and in here I've got Bastion, and this is basically connecting to my database, but I'm not getting an external IP address, a public IP address. I'm going in through the connections I have there. Okay, so that's kind of where I can connect to that, and then spin up things like my management studio, and kind of work with this really easily here. Looks like we got some messages. So how to access the lag and log. Okay, cool. Let me just put that in. So let me go grab the URL again. Okay, so let me actually just show you this once more, everyone. Okay, so this is the link. Now we go to my my private browser and just put that link in. This will bring you to courses.beaconintel.co.uk. Come down and just click on Get Course. Okay, and then you'll need to kind of sign in or log in. If you already signed up, just log in. If not, sign up, and then you'll be able to access that course. So here's the example of me running this course at the moment. So I'm in module 3. I can then kind of start, say I want to go through and I want to work through this exercise here. I can go through and perform the steps in that. So yeah, you can sign up to the course that way. All right, so I'm going to put some timer up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a initial timer up to take us to 12:30. Sorry, 12:15. My mistake. So I'm going to put a timer up to take us to 12:15. So this is our lab time, about 25 minutes. And then you've got a 45-minute break. So we're going from 12:15 to 1 o'clock. And that is going to then come back at 1 p.m. And we'll be able to then move into the 4th module. So we've got modules 4, 5, and 6. And then that close out module 7 at the end as well. Okay. All right. So 1 o'clock, everyone, come back. But if you have any questions, put those in the chat window. But yeah, you've got some lab and then some lunch. Lab and lunch. All right, folks. It looks like the timer has ended. So I'm just going to reset the timer though for our lunch break. I'm going to come back at 1 o'clock. All right, so go and enjoy your lunch, everyone. We will see you at 1 o'clock. I know I need something. I'm going to also take the little doggy for a walk, so I'll be back in a little bit, and I'll see you then. Okay, enjoy your lunch, everyone. See you in a bit. All right. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, looks like the timer has run its time. So welcome back, welcome back. It looks like we're going to get going with this afternoon. Hopefully the voice will kind of hold-ish. Hopefully not getting worse. So let's bring up the next module, everyone. Let me just prep my screens a little bit, 1 second, so I can kind of check the other screens as well at the same time. Okay, dog has been walked, cough mixture has been taken, new lemon sip on the go. All right, module 4. So we got 4, 5, and 6, kind of the main modules for this afternoon. Module 7 is just a closing module, kind of but what's module 4 all about? Well, it's about security, scalability, and availability, kind of some of the tenets of kind of having those systems up and running and what we have. So we talk about some of the enhancements we have find. Some of the enhancements we find with these areas. So what are the security enhancements? What are those scalability enhancements? What are the availability? And there's a few others as well along the way. We'll then review what kind of exercises exist in this module, and then we'll do a quick knowledge check at the end. So let's do a quick overview first. So as you're probably aware, Microsoft is touted as being the most secure kind of environment from a database perspective against its competitors for many, many years. But we're constantly wanting to improve that security kind of capability. So you want to add in some more secure capabilities. So we've got Ledger for SQL Server. We're going to explore that in a little bit more detail in a short while. We've got some always encrypted enhancements. What are those? We're going to show you those as well. Super annoying. 1 sec. That's what happens when you go outside and it's cold, you come back and it's warm. So we'll look at some of the encryption, so TDS8, so better encryption offerings. So that's the secure side. Scalability, we have a buffer pool parallel scan option kind of being added, so that kind of improves the throughput by parallelizing that scan. We have something called hands-free tempdb. No more figuring out how to configure that tempdb to be kind of necessary for your specific environment. We used to have fun with that one. I like that one. So kind of a bit like it's all gone away. No, but this is a better thing. It's kind of like, you know, kind of the product figures it out for you and does take care of it. And auto sync update stats concurrency. So kind of thing we've often had issues with is keeping their stats up to date. Well, there's an auto async update stats concurrency, so we can currently scale that service much better, so we can get those update stats done much quicker. And then for what's the availability look like? Well, we got our contained AGs, so we got a new kind of capability around our contained availability groups. We have snapshot backups, but are cross-platform, so across multiple different platforms now. And there's something called Quick Assist Technology, QIT, so kind of QAT, I should say, which is basically going to improve backup compression. So backups are an important kind of part of our life cycle of our databases. Getting better compression, better performance, better backup compression is always going to be an improvement. So For Ledger, for security rather, we're going to kick off with Ledger for SQL. This is one of the big ones. This is kind of like something that we're going to provide us with a tracking capability over time of our records, and it's done with blockchain. So we're going to explore that a little bit more in a moment. We've got always encrypted enhancements, explore what those are as well. Our strict encryption connections, so TDS 8 and our TLS 1.3 being kind of the capabilities there. We got some support for certificates, specifically the PFX type. There are some new fixed server roles, and they're more granular in nature, so that's going to be cool as well. We'll look at some of those. And if you've ever used dynamic data masking, we've got enhancements around that dynamic data masking as well. So let's kick off with Ledger. So Ledger for SQL is a tamper-proof using the power of blockchain to kind of record data over its life cycle. So what changes have happened. So we basically bring that kind of detection, excuse me. That detection technology to understand if anything's been kind of, agended, amended, fixed, changed when it shouldn't be. So kind of malicious actors. We are going to build this in with T-SQL. We're going to have this built into the technology. You're going to be able to use that blockchain technology, kind of make sure that kind of the data you've got coming in hasn't been compromised in any way, and we'll have some digest storage capabilities of that as well. So we can see here we've got an updatable ledger table. We are going to record a history, and we will then have a ledger view that's going to span both of those, and that then essentially is going to wrap around the database ledger across those structures. So we're going to have some trusted storage that's going to retain and manage that information, and that in its turn then can be kind of can queried and can be identified and processed by those services. So really cool new kind of ledger for SQL. There is a nice lab or exercise in here for us as well. Yeah, so we kind of have that. So this is how you use it. We're going to create what we refer to as a ledger table. So there's an updatable or append only mode. You will get the history of those inserts, deletes, and updates. So that is for the only updatable if it's the delete, for example. And you will save that history and you will verify the digest either manually or automatically in the service as well. So really nice, kind of like kind of quick and straightforward. Create a table, make some changes, save those digest values. So some of the questions we got, and I had a discussion or two about this at past, was, well, didn't we already have something similar to this already in the use of temporal tables? And yes, we did, but basically it wasn't necessarily tamper evidence proof. It did have some kind of limitations. So there were kind of some similarities to it, but it wasn't essentially exactly what we needed. We didn't use the blockchain technology to kind of support that. So basically, the verification is a different part of it, and that's kind of what we need, is like the verification chain and go, okay, well, look at this and prove to me that this hasn't been amended in any way. Again, we cannot turn off the ledger. Okay, you cannot turn off system version. So we can drop this to sorry. Can we drop the table? Yes, you can, but the ledger for it will be kept. So if you drop the ledger table, you still got the history. That's kind of maintained. So you got a bit of security element there. Okay. I say we're not going into lots of details here, but kind of just highlighting kind of some of the high level stuff. What about saving the ledger? So there will be a a space requirement because we're capturing information and we're storing that information. Excuse me. So it will require some additional table kind of space. In terms of kind of how much, in terms of percentage, haven't really kind of figured that out yet. Haven't looked at it in enough detail. There could be a small performance impact with append, and you would have a similar impact, the same as we did with temporal. We had a few percent impact with temporal before. We're going to have a similar overhead as well, because we're doing some additional work when we do the insert deletes. We're capturing this additional information. All right, so I haven't got too much detail. There's more documentation, etc., and there's a nice exercise. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm just checking the recording will stop because I think there's kind of a time limit on there, and I think the new one has started. So we kind of it's saving the current one, and I think kind of it will be doing the new recording as well. So, by the way, because of the voice, I'm going to re-record some of the demos without the annoying kind of voice overhead, the overview of my voice as it is. So when this is cleared up, more videos will be recorded and added to the course. Scalability, my friends, scalability. So buffer pool, parallelize scans. So previously, if you scanning your buffer pool, looking at those pages and scanning them, that was kind of done as a more serial type operation. We have a more parallel scan functionality now, so we can actually kind of process more data in a time frame with parallelism on that. Hands-free TempDB. Woohoo! Gotta do that one. It's gonna save some headaches for people, and it's a good thing that it's kind of finally been taken care of. Okay. Auto sync update stats concurrency and auto drop statistics. So there's some stats improvements there. This has been a long time in the coming. XML compression. Now, it's complex. I spent a lot of time looking into XML in my day. So compression of this, because of the nature of how XML is and the structure of it, compression is something that was challenging to do. So they found a way to improve and to add XML compression here. We've got the batch mode operations using the advanced vector extensions. So kind of the batch mode for operations is now better. They've improved that, along with column store segmentation. So kind of those million record row groups, segmentations you have, etc. So they've got improvements around the segmentation, and you can do an ordered clustered column store index now, and also there's going to be rebuild. I think there's some challenges around kind of rebuilding some of the existing column store now ordered at not maybe 100% maintaining the order. I have to look into some people's kind of examination of that. But if you're doing a new one, then that shouldn't be a problem. There we go. Okay, let's talk about hands-free. Look, Mum, no hands. So previously, pre-SQL Server 2019, we had trace flags, the 777, 117, 118, multiple files, trace flags, kind of you name it. We would have maybe some contention on the SGAM, the shared GAM, the global allocation map, the shared global allocation map, the PFS, the page file space, etc. All these kind of different file types, internal ones. We have some contention when they got basically hotspotted. Come 2019, things got improved. Auto grow. System tables became hotspots now. So kind of moved the problem around a little bit. SCAM and GAM contention was and still was a problem. It wasn't fixed. Okay, now 2019, 2020, 2022, pretty much SCAM and GAM concurrency and 99.99 latching gone. So the latching issues that we had and those kind of problems, we used to have some extended events that would look for these problems. 99.99% they're at their history now. Okay, so pretty much the problems that we had with TempDB should be eradicated in the majority of cases. There's no 100% scenario, I don't think ever, but like here we should be pretty good. What about other availability enhancements? So quite a big list. Contained availability groups, the cross-platform snapshot baggers. Excuse me. When you try not to cough, you seem to cough more. The quick assist technology for backup compression, ADR enhancements. So that's all kind of advanced disaster recovery enhancements. In-memory OOTP. So in-memory OOTP, we've got some memory enhancements that kind of make that a much better kind of in-memory kind of scenario of how it's being utilized. Shrink database concurrency. So if you ever do need to shrink your database, and God forbid you really shouldn't be doing this unless there's a real good reason for it, there's some concurrency on that as well. Parallel redo enhancements. So when you have to do a redo cycle, where they have to kind of replay and redo, there's going to be some enhancements around the way that that's implemented and actually processed. Distributed AGs, there's enhancements there. Resumable, a constraint. So basically, if you had like a constraint, if you had to pause, you had to go back and start again, kind of all the way through, you have to go back to the beginning. Very large tables were problematic. We can basically kind of pause and resume that a little bit. And last valid restore time is actually going to be in the backup MSDB table. So basically, we can see when we did a restore, we can query that backup set information and get lots of cool information there. And the winner to PP to replication. So basically, the last update, kind of who wins that that auto conflict kind of scenario there. Again, not going to give you a huge amounts of detail on those. We look at the availability groups though. So I'm going to synchronize my instance level objects with the availability group because it wasn't being taken care of. Now we can create an availability group and declare it to be contained, the whole thing. We include the master MSDB to that AG now. We still have the listener and the master and MSDB used, and I still can connect directly to those services. But the agent understands the MSDB is kind of contained version. So you can see here example of the master MSDB not synchronizing in this case, and then kind of obviously we kind of sort out. So you can see at the bottom availability group databases down here. You can see kind of that these kind of were matching. Oops, these ones up here. There we go. So kind of like this set here. Okay. So this is how it works. So it's kind of they've got the master and the MSDB in the primary, and we have the subsequent master DB in the secondary. Now all the other databases, or the MSDB, the MSDB and the master and any other databases that you've defined are going to log their changes via the listener and a direct contact, and kind of update the secondary service. Okay, so we've included those additional databases there. Okay. If you want an exercise around that, 4.2 is going to be the one that you need. Okay. Okay, so go look at the exercise in the kind of course, and you'll see 4.2 is for contained developability groups. In terms of snapshot backups, we had our favorite VDI, virtual device interface program, our VSS, and our SQL writer to do basically snapshot kind of backup strategies. Now, T-SQL is going to suspend that I/O path, those patterns. It's going to perform the snapshot and then resume it. So basically, the problem was before we had like I/Os being written as we were trying to do this snapshot. So by pausing and then resuming, we can kind of get a much cleaner, quicker snapshot and use the kind of the storage that will support that, because essentially we pause the I/O so we can just look at the storage and go snapshot that now, please go bang. So we kind of will see maybe an increase on write log weights that are suspended because of the pausing effect that we're doing. There is a required trace lag 3661 to be able to test out this currently. Undocumented, unsupported. So use at your own risk levels. Okay. There's some hardware acceleration and offloading of some of the services that. One moment. Let's set the scenario. You've got a certain amount of resourcing. You want your resources to be available for your business processes. But you will have some kind of offline, maintenance type activities that need to happen as well. Okay, so we can offload some of these kind of requirements. Then that's going to be a great thing. So we maintain stability for our critical workloads with our current kind of capacity and processing, and we can kind of offline essentially the stuff that we don't really isn't as critical, and things that we kind of more for business continuity, disaster recovery, that kind of strategies. You want to offline those and have them work kind of done elsewhere. So we can kind of do some of this kind of work. So it helps with scalability, makes use of your current hardware more effectively, that kind of stuff. So we're going to use the quick assist technology to provide compression using the hardware tool. So I've got like some rack, machines here, and they've got some really good GPU and stuff, and I can offload some of my video processing onto those. Well, we do a similar thing with the compression, where we use a specific hardware acceleration, essentially, of intensive workloads. Some of the kind of stats there: 2.3x in database backup time. So backups 2.x to 2.3 times quicker. Smaller. So basically, because of the way it's been done, it kind of can be a little bit more compressed. So it'd be smaller. So these are some of the things we can do by offloading these type of activities. So with certain drivers, certain hardware configurations, and backup compression option needs to be kind of used to be able to do that backup, etc. If your services are not that busy anyway, you're not going to see much gain, because essentially we're not really offloading the workloads because you've already got plenty of overhead. So kind of be aware that it's not going to see much impact on quiet systems or quieter system. Heavy CPU workloads. So kind of again, just kind of making sure that you're outperforming the kind of the existing way of doing things. So Reducing buffer pool IO promotions. Not sure what I can do about the voice, but I'll just try to keep working way through it. Spin lock algorithms, virtual file log algorithms, improvements there, instant file initialization for log file growth, so growing those without zeroing it out, that kind of stuff. So this is some of the kind of things that we can tick off our list. Click, 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 click. Okay, all good. All right, so if you want to look at the ledger, that's 4.0. You want to look at the hands-free TempDB, it's 4.1. We're going to go and explore those a little bit in a second. Question time, folks. So independent, let me just kind of turn off the air conditioning for a second. So a little bit too dry in here, so I'm just opening the door a little bit and turning off the AC. Independent verification for ledger for SQL Server is done by, that's done by Jeff, isn't it? I think Jeff does that. No. Is it the database ledger through system tables? Is it the ledger history view? Is it database digest, or is it blockchain data in SQL Server tables? All right, ready? Here we go. Drum roll. It is our database digest. So we are capturing and creating digest of this. So that digest is doing that independent verification workload. All right. With enhancements into SQL Server 2022, we now recommend only one TempDB file. Is that true or is it false? Ooh, let me think. It is false. So we don't recommend one file. Basically, that's going to be something that is aligned to kind of the number of cores, etc. But yeah, you're not going to look at one TempDB. That is a false statement. A contained availability group replicates which objects? Linked servers, SQL agent jobs, logins, or all of those above. Well, that is, as you should probably imagine, it's going to be everything. So we're basically replicating all that kind of metadata information as well. And what are the benefits of using the Quick Assist with SQL Server 2022? So is it improved backup compression? Is it cross-platform backups on SQL Server for Linux? Is it offloading CPU pressures for SQL Server workloads? Is it the A and the C? Is it all of the above? So the answer to this one is it's the A and C. So it's basically better compression and better CPU offloading of resources. Okay, so that's the Quick Assist technology, the Intel one, that is. All right, so in this one again, not too much kind of in-depth there, but it's an enhancements we found around the security, scalability, and availability. You see there was quite a long list, and in most of those, we have Ledger for our tamper evidence records, and we use blockchain technology to achieve that. Concurrency, bye-bye. We're not going to see you anymore. So hands-free TempDB has been kind of brought to the game. Availability, we're talking about AGs, contained AGs, talking about snapshots, pause, snapshot, resume. We're talking about the Quick Assist backup compression. So lots of kind of availability improvements there, and a ton of others. There's about 25 odd or more engine enhancements in this release. Okay, I'm going to come on to module 5 in a moment. Before we do so, let's go and look at the exercises we have. And before I do that, I'm going to just go and check we don't have any chat items. Oh, and I just realized I've not got my lighting on, so I was a little bit in the dark there for a moment. It's bright enough, but not quite as bright as it should be. Okay. All right, let's go look at those improved. So we're in module 4, as I said. Let's go look at the exercises. So the first of those, exercise 4, is Ledger for SQL. Now, this was, again, kind of configuring your environment using a updatable ledger table. So we've got some scripts again. The scripts are in the zip file inside of the exercise. Again, they're going to be in the main GitHub repository as well, of course. So one thing also you might need to know, you're going to have to use Azure Data Studio. Reason being, in this exercise, you're using some SQL notebooks, and they're only available in Data Studio, not in SQL Server Management Studio. So SSMS does not have notebook capability. Azure Data Studio does. If you install version 19 of SSMS, it also installs ADS as well, the Azure Data Studio. So I'll just get the latest version of SSMS, install it, and you'll have the ADS already kind of to go as well. And then if you go to something like your environment, let's reconnect with our Bastion. So we had a timeout because obviously we used it for a while. Just wait for that to respond. So refresh the screen. So we lost that connection, so I'm just going to go and reconnect. So let me kind of just put my username in again. So this is the, which one are we connecting to? So I think I want to connect to. Okay, one moment, folks. I just need to answer this. Didn't answer it quick enough. Okay, so I want to go to, that's my managed instance, not the one. I want the, oh, I need to go, I wonder why we couldn't see what I was looking for. I need to go to my resource groups. There we go, okay, right. I need to go to this virtual machine. I want to go to Bastion here. Okay, so I'm going to do SQL admin. Lovely password. Oh, looks like my session expired as well. I'm one of those days, so I'll retry that. Come back, orders forgiven. All right, let's try that again, shall we? Okay, let's try the password once more. All right, so I'm connected into the Bastion, into my SQL Server 2022 environment. And what I was going to do was to show you, if I go to kind of right click here, you see I've got my Azure Data Studio. So for example, I do a new query here, and that's going to open up my Azure Data Studio. Give it a second or two. There we go. So I've now connected. Sorry, there we go. I'm now connected to my data, my database. So I did that by right-clicking on that service and go into the Data Studio. I could also launch, for example, a new notebook. So if I go into here, I could launch a new, so let's actually say update now. So we're going to kind of launch the new one, get the latest version of it. This is one of the problems when you install ADS. It's probably going to install a version, maybe it's like not quite the most updated one. Okay, so let's wait for that to restart. But then we're going to have, let's close out this screen here. We're going to have the latest version of ADS stored, and then we can kind of use that to run notebooks, specifically the notebook. Oh dear. The notebooks for the exercise that we're looking at. Okay, so that's going to relaunch that now. Just take a moment when you tend to update it for some reason. There we go. Okay, so don't want to read the notes. I'm going to be okay here. So what I'm going to do is, you can see here we're disconnected. I'm just going to relaunch that. And you can see here, I'm going to update the certificate, and now I'm connected. And then I want to do is I want to create a new notebook. And you can see here, I've now got my notebook, and I could choose my connection. I've got my different types of kind of kernels I can use. I've got my notebooks that I can go and kind of open existing ones or create new ones there. Cool. Okay, so that is that's the Azure Data Studio. I want to do that. So again, we're kind of not needing to do anything really here at the moment, so I'll get rid of it. Okay, trying to remember what I was doing before I went there. Okay. Oh yeah, I was in here. So I'm going to use some notebooks. We need to set up the environment, create the database, create the table, the ledger table, populate some data in it, examine that information. Then we're going to look at that ledger view, examine the definition of it, so we can see the history for object 1, object 2, whatever it might be. We can combine that ledger view with system tables to get more detailed, like who did the insert. That was Bob. Bob did it, and he did it with this timestamp, so we can see who and when what. We can generate that digest, and that's going to save the output to verify the ledger. We can get our ledger blocks. We can get to see if we so basically we're seeing if somebody like sneakily tries to update their salary information. Basically by running that, we can kind of obviously get history, and we can see when and how that information got updated. There's an append, so that top one is an updatable ledger. This one's append only ledger, and this one is how you protect the ledger tables from any DDL, data definition language changes. I do apologize. Take some more water. That's better. Okay, and we have the ledger notebook. So we can basically kind of observe some examples of that. So if you want to look at that ledger example, that is ledger number 40. Okay. Module exercise 4.1 is hands-free temp-DB. So in here, the exercises are pretty similar. So we basically got some setup. We got our script to find the number of files. We're going to start our minimum mode SQL. We're going to modify the number of files with the command. We're going to execute the script, which does some OLA growth, and we're going to then observe the performance of that using that perf counters. And we're going to look at the page info SQL. We're going to run the stress tool. We'll review the page info data again. We're looking for latch weights here, etc. We've got a second exercise here about optimization, but without new SQL enhancements. So a couple of changes. And then a similar one with the enhancements on. Right. Final module for exercise is contained AGs. All right, so you can see here there's a little bit more work. We've got to do a couple of VMs. They need to be in the same virtual network. There's going to be where was it? Need some firewall rules to be enabled. We want to enable SQL AG on each of the instances. Restart, make sure we got, and then we're going to go through these steps to create the contained AG. We're going to add a database into that AG. We're going to check the connection and the listener, make sure they work. We're going to do a test failover to make sure that we can see the kind of information flowing from one side to the next, etc. Okay, so that's going to be that exercise. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to give a little bit of time for you to have a look at those exercises, read through, or just kind of go through the previous exercises if you still haven't completed those. Okay, so also gives me a couple of minutes to rest my voice. So it's now 22 or thereabouts. Let's bring up our virtual break. And we're going to put a 30-minute lab on there. Okay, that's 30. Okay, now I don't expect maybe you're going to get all the way through it, but from a time perspective, it's about the amount of time that we have available to us. So I'm going to put 10 past. So that's 10 past 2. So that gives us actually 28 minutes. Okay. So you want to do exercises or have a look, read through, kind of explore for module 4. You've got 28 minutes. When we come back, we will then look at module 5. Okay, I will see you in 10 past. Okay. Gonna get some. All right, 5 seconds. All right, pencils down, everyone, pencils down. Time's up. Okay, so we're going to resume this time with module 5. So we obviously didn't give you a huge amount of time there with module 4, but I wanted to give you a bit of time just to kind of explore some of those exercises, maybe get a start on them. So back to the coffin, they say. All right, let's move the things into position. All right, so we've got 2 more key modules to go through, and then we've got a break, and we're going to have probably do module 5. Then we're going to have a break. So we'll do module 5, the exercise for module 5, give you a bit more time on that one again, a break, and then we'll come back, look at module 6, which is pretty short. So I think actually what we'll do is probably do module 5, the exercise, break, come back, module 6, look at the exercises for that one. That's the T-SQL one. And then we'll be closing out with module 7, around about the 4 o'clock time frame. Okay, so module 5, new sources with data visualization and object storage. So we have a couple of, excuse me. As soon as I start to talk, it comes back with a vengeance. So data virtualization with both Polybase and with SQL Server 2022. We're going to talk about backup and restore options using the S3 object storage. So new capability here. We've got some exercises to walk through those and a quick knowledge check and summary as well. So why do we need data virtualization? What's the challenge we have? Well, especially if we come back from kind of where I was when I first started, everything was moving data around. You got very efficient at kind of moving data and placing it into a data warehouse or to a database and kind of moving it from here to there and to there and to there. And it took time. It took money and it took time. So if we can kind of do kind of better virtualization, i.e. leaving the data, potentially where it is, and essentially virtualizing, so kind of having a remote connection to one or more of these data sources. And then essentially internally, we kind of represent it as if it was inside the engine. So we can join it with other tables, etc. So all of the ETL, extract, transform, and load, one was expensive, was a challenge. We want to try to minimize that and get access to that data, but without moving the data, magically make it appear inside the database, essentially. Not quite magic though, is it? So I need access to my data, and I want to be able to access that data basically where it is in the storage itself. Okay, so we can use a couple of different methods for that. We have our open row set. We have our external table or CTAS, create table as select options there. Okay, we have our HTTPS REST API calls. So we've got our kind of Azure Data Lake Store. We got our compatible storage S3, etc. IBS. We kind of got all these different storage mediums that exist. Now, the format of those files also is a factor. So is it a Parquet file? Is it going to be a Delta type file, CSV text? What is the type file do we have here? And then, of course, many other sources of data, many different third-party systems, many different kind of things like different SQL databases, Azure Data Storage, Data Factory, just storage accounts themselves, so you name it, we've got lots of different files and locations for all of that. And additionally, we also need to be able to access data in our backups, our backup files as well. And then need to do all this through my SQL Server system. So pretty much the way that we would probably mostly do this is through either one of the free file formats. So we got S3. It's an open protocol by Amazon, very popular for storing object storage protocols. Inexpensive, very durable, kind of unlimited data resources really there. One of my favorites is our Parquet, again, an open source format, but we have the schema defined inside that. So kind of we have our Parquet files, very good at compression and retrieval of columnar data. It's one of the reasons why we often convert data into a Parquet format, because it's a lot more compressed and it's more readable and quickly ingested. And our Delta Lakes, so if you're using Delta tables, it's basically Parquet files with additional kind of capability, very good at kind of that kind of stuff. So we have all of those services, but we can also introduce our Poly-based services as well. So connecting to our kind of different storage mediums, different services, etc. And then using Poly-based to kind of run those workloads through that. So we kind of will probably super annoying. Hopefully we'll kind of be able to travel through a little bit with my voice. So we're going to turn on Polybase and install the kind of components for that. We're going to configure it. There's some best practices maybe as well on kind of terms of how you're going to kind of align this and set it up. Basically, we have our system tables. We will have a kind of compatible storage layer, which may or may not talk to those different files. Also, it will talk to about different format types. So Parquet, Delta, CSV, text file formats, etc. We will have a way of connecting to the database with a master key and maybe our scope credential. And that's basically going to then kind of use its connectivity to the external data source. and we will have a file format that we define inside of the SQL Server database. So we define the connection, we define the file format, and we will basically then run an open row set maybe to go and query that data. We can also do that with a more structured external table as well. So a few different ways of getting to the data. Potentially, you may apologies, I'm starting to struggle with my voice here a little bit now. CTAS, create external table as a selector. Can ingest that data. You're going to join it to existing tables or join it to other external tables. So you can have data in many different places and you're joining it kind of internally and querying it and processing it as if it all sits inside the SQL Server engine. In terms of a backup, we could do a backup kind of to or from a URL with S3 supported storage medium. So that's a lot of the kind of storage you can see at the bottom there. So, you know, pure storage, Minio, etc., whatever the different kind of environments are. We can even go and migrate from other platforms there. So there's a few different kind of methods for backup and restoring our databases. To kind of go through that, we're going to look at some exercises. So we've got 5 exercises. Exercise 5.0 is the open row set. And you can use a public data set to kind of try this out. You don't have to have some data already kind of set. Just kind of connect to a public data set using the open row set. 5.1 is using Parquet and S3. 5.2 is notebooks with Delta and S3. We have 5.3 as well, which is a backup and restore and the S3 storage. And 5.4 is using the Minio server. I think you also, some of these you need to set up Minio as well before you kind of can run some of these. Again, all the instructions are in the exercises. We're going to do a quick knowledge check, then we're going to get you into those exercises. So, the server can now access those external data sources through which one of these? Is it REST API to S3 object providers? Is it create data Delta tables on REST API Delta sources from a select? Is it accessing Parquet files on ODBC data sources, or is it the first two, A and B? Well, the answer is first. So basically, REST API or creating Delta tables on the REST API Delta sources using a select CETAS. Can we restore a database from AWS to SQL? Yes, we can. So we can take that database that's in an AWS RDS database structure system, and we can now restore that to a SQL Server 2022 option there. Okay, so quick summary. So we have some new API. Sorry, some new REST API sources. So we have our blob storage, data lake storage Gen 2, and that is S3 compatible. It's a good job we're getting to the end of today's training. I think I've probably got another hour or two in me, I think. SQL Server natively recognizes both the Parquet and the Delta file format. So kind of does this initially natively now, which is really good. We don't have to kind of worry about that anymore in terms of kind of defining the file formats. SQL Server and backup and restore native backups to and from S3 compatible stores. So if it's an S3 compatible store, all good. we are good there. Okay, so that is module 5. Let's go look at those exercises. Right, so module 5, say a lot less slides than we've had before, but we have a lot more exercises. So kind of gain on one hand, lose on the other. Okay, so let's have a look at the exercises. So the first one is open row set. This one I would recommend you probably want to maybe look at because it can use that open row set, and you basically don't need to worry too much about setting up any other kind of components. If you get kind of some messages, you might need to make sure the Polybase service is running on that virtual machine. Again, you need to have some certain configuration settings. And if you haven't set it up initially, you need to go and redo it and then restart. So that is first one. The second one is the Parquet and S3. So again, we want to make sure that we can use our notebook. So we're going to use our T-SQL notebook in our web browser, and we're going to use it with either or with Azure Data Studio. So I would probably do ADS. That's generally where I might run my my notebooks from, or actually potentially I'm running them in Synapse workspace. That's where I also run my notebooks again. So I've got a notebook that will be part of the zip file. So grab that, open that up. Now you will need to have your Minio exercise, excuse me, done. So click on that link, and you've got to basically follow these setup instructions. Okay. So basically, set up Minio for the exercise. Basically, you've got to download the download the tool. So you can go grab the Minio SQL. You kind of grab that, download it, rename the file into an exe, and then kind of create a directory and kind of just put it into that directory and kind of forget. So it's kind of pretty straightforward. Download Minio, download OpenSSL. You need to set a couple of parameters in your in your system environment, which is going to be the OpenSSL CFG. So that's your configuration file. So you need to go and set a system variable to reference the CFG, I should say. Sorry, I said it wrong. And then also add the system environment variable for the OpenSSL pin directory as well. You want to generate a private key. So you basically run this command. It will give you a private key. You want to copy that into your config, and then basically make sure that your IP address and stuff. So you kind of basically follow these instructions. And then from the command line, you're going to run that command. Basically, you get something similar to what you're seeing on the screen here as the output. Okay. If you want to do the exercise for the Parquet, you need to follow these instructions. And if you're going to do it for the Delta, it's these instructions. And for use SQLServer for the exercise, you can use the yeah, I'm quite struggling now with my voice. It kind of looks like it's running out of steam here. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to walk through these exercises. So that was exercise number, let's go back a level. And then we want to go back to, try again. There we go. Here we go. And go back to the module number 5. So there's Delta, backup and restore, and the Minio server. Okay, so let's put let's take us to 3 o'clock, and then we're going to take a 15-minute break. So we're going to take give you time to go through the exercises, and then take a 15-minute break. So let's put some time up. Okay. All right, timer has ended, everyone. Timer's up. All right, let's let's get back into it. So, by the way, I put a little poll in. Got a couple more just to put your way as well before we finish today. But you can kind of look at the polls that are going through and answer those. That'd be great. It kind of gives me a bit of a view into how useful and what these are. We've just got one more poll. I'm actually going to, well, I've got a couple more I'm going to put in. But let me just put the next one up as well, which is rating the materials. So let's have a quick kind of add the poll in there as well. If you don't mind, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. Right, one more module to go. Well, one and a closing one. So one more main module to go, module number 6. Again, this is a really short one, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. There is some exercises. So let me explain. The voice is really going, so I'll kind of make it short and snappy today. So let me get the module up. Okay, here we go. All right, final kind of module of the lot. Now, of course, all of this content is in the kind of course resources, so you can come back and look at this later on, of course, and go through those exercises in your in your own time. So, as you know, T-SQL is our flavor of SQL, structured query language that we have in the SQL Server world. So Transact SQL, Oracle has like a PL SQL, and there's a few others. So we're going to look at the new capabilities in T-SQL that we have with this latest release. And essentially, it's just really kind of saying, look, I need to be able to do stuff, and I want to be able to kind of do it natively inside of SQL. So we're going to talk about JSON first, our friend, Mr. JSON. So we're doing a lot of JSON documents these days, very popular format there. So we need to check, is it JSON? Is there a path exist? What is the object? What is the array? So these are the key kind of 4 JSON related T-SQL kind of capabilities we now have in this version. When we talk about T-SQL itself, we have some additional kind of enhancements, everything from greatest and least, kind of find those values, the string split, the trim functions, data truncation, or sorry, date truncation. Can't read my own handwriting here. Is not distinct from. So we used to have distinct. We have now is not distinct, and we have our window clauses. Left shift, right shift, or variants of that. A bit count, get bit, and set bit. So there's a whole bunch of exercises, and get the breath back, that you can look at inside of the kind of module around T-SQL. And finally, we have our kind of our analysis. So we have like date bucket, generate series, first and last values. Again, some useful functions that exist around that value. So the exercises that we have are going to be around JSON, the core T-SQL, some time series data kind of values, and those bit manipulation. So all of these new functionalities that we are bringing with 2022 for you. So let's go have a look at those. We will do a quick knowledge check first. So which T-SQL function can produce JSON formatted data? Is it JSON object, JSON array, JSON text? Is it A and C? Sorry, A and B. Can't read my own handwriting here again. Is it all of the above? Roll. And the answer is A and B. So basically, JSON object and JSON array of the 4 new JSON kind of commands we have are the 2 that we can produce formatted data with. Okay. Which important enhancement was added to the string split function in SQL Server 2022? Now, I'm not kind of explained this before, so you probably don't know the answer to this one unless you looked at it. So is it separator? Is it multi-valued expression? Is it ordinal? Or is it new string types? There we go. Well, this is actually the ordinal, ordinal position of our kind of string split. So we have that kind of new capability there. All right. So this was kind of the enhancements. Over kind of the last few releases, this has got the most new kind of T-SQL related enhancements. We've often been a bit skimpy on some of the T-SQL stuff that they have kind of given us, so it's good to see a few more in there. The abilities to process JSON documents, really JSON kind of structures really good. Yep. Core enhancements for compatibility with the standards, etc. Yep, all good. We want to go do more with our built-in T-SQL language rather than having to go kind of external to the language to do anything that we need to do. And ability to do time series data processing. So yeah, kind of really good to do kind of the kind of those kind of capabilities as well. So there's going to be a range of kind of exercises. Let's go look at what those are. So one final run into the world of the modules. So we're going to module 6. And you say we just have that one slide, really, language enhancements, not really too much in there. But you can see here we've got the JSON function exercise 6. 6.1 is for core T-SQL. 6.2 is the time series, and 6.3 is the bits. My voice is just completely going right now, so I do apologize for those listening. So I'm not going to go in for all the instructions because basically I don't think my voice is going to hold up. But basically, have a look at the examples, have a look at the code. Again, JSON zip there, and we have time series instructions. So take bucket, generate series, gap filling, etc. Again, time series zip. So go back to module number 3. Oh, just did that one, sorry. And the final one is for bit manipulation. So having the kind of getting those bit functions working, the left shift, the right shift, kind of double forward, double back kind of views of that. Okay, so that is all of the modules with all the exercises. Final module is the closing one. Let me put a couple of polls up actually as well. So by the way, there was a question added about the videos. So I will be grabbing the recording and bringing that in and downloading that. Because my voice has been not great, I'm going to wait till this is recovered. I'm going to re-record some of the, well, I'm actually going to record some of the demos from start to finish. I decided not to do a bunch of those today because of the nature of my voice. Probably a good call, otherwise I think we would have finished it a lot earlier than today. No. So I'll record those videos. They'll be added to those exercises, so you'll be able to watch those. So sometime during next week, and potentially into the Christmas to New Year period as well. I'll be adding those content in. So we have one final module to navigate. I'm going to get you a kind of done and dusted, as they say. So summary of SQLs 2022. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because my voice is not going to survive. I don't think too much talking. So it is Azure enabled. It's the most cloud enabled version. We have disaster recovery. We have our analytics. We have our additional security. All great new capabilities there. We've added built-in intelligence to the service to make that performance better without code changes. You will have new scalability, security, and availability enhancements that kind of can take you to a much more secure environment, a much more available recovery, maybe versionless databases for stores, for example. The virtualization and the object storage, new capabilities there. And T-SQL. So a whole bunch of new stuff added. Now, what's next? Well, there's a whole bunch of links in the resources. You can go and find out a whole bunch more with these links. So have a look at the slide, get the decks. That's in the course already, so you have that kind of at your fingertips. There's some demos, there's a blog series, there's a new Microsoft Learning Path. They're actually kind of releasing it right now. So although it says coming soon, it's actually pretty much out there now. So go and have a look at the aka.ms Learn SQL 2022, and it will give you a whole bunch of Microsoft Learn modules that are going to take you into the world of SQL Server 2022. Right, what do we have left? So there's the summary, there's the resources, there's some additional kind of notes and stuff kind of that you can see about kind of things like SQL Server, SSRS, SSAS, explains about the kind of a hybrid platform, some notes about signups. You might want to kind of get that signups link, SQL link there. And we've got a few minor small requests. We've recently just launched, we've only had like a couple of people go into it, but because we've done lots of training for other companies and we can't get that kind of trust pilot review done for ourselves because it wasn't our own delivery. So we're going to kind of ask you to do a trust pilot review. Let us know how kind of you thought it went, kind of give some feedback to other users who are maybe looking to consider using our services. So we'd be very grateful if you could do that as well. Soon as we get a certain number of volume of reviews, our rating can kind of be evaluated at a slightly better level. So we've only got like a few reviews at the moment. So do help us with that if you can. I'm going to submit, going to launch a couple of final polls. So one is coming in there now. So one is please rate the materials. Another one I just put in there is please rate the trainer's communication skills. Clearly a bit under par today. There's a poll about how satisfied you were also with the training workshop. So kind of give us your honest view about, whether you were very dissatisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, neither satisfied or dissatisfied, somewhat satisfied or very satisfied. So one of those 5 kind of ratings there. And how do you think this can be improved? And clearly somebody with a unknown coughing work kind of voice will be a very optimum answer there. Well, we're finishing a little bit early, purely because I can't really talk anymore. So I'd love to go into a little bit more detail and talk to you stuff about it, but I'm clearly kind of voice is pretty much gone. But I appreciate you attending. Look out for those new videos. Take the course. Give us feedback. We love to kind of try and kind of improve our services as we go forward, and everything. All the things like you're going to kind of feedback to us will be taken on board, good or bad. If you need anything from me, you can also get in touch with me on LinkedIn, everyone. So I'm Neil Hambley at LinkedIn. Very happy to connect, answer questions. I'm going to bid you a great weekend. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your Easter, Christmas, festive, New Year's break, whatever it could be that you're going to have coming up. I know it's not the Easter one. Just why I throw that one in, because it throws everybody else. So have a good Easter. It's like, sorry, what? Have a good Christmas, everyone. If you're going to have to share and going to celebrate Christmas, take care. Try not to get cold. If you do, be safe. And I will speak to you. I will speak to you again, I'm sure, soon. Look out for an email from us soon to tell us how we are in kind of delivering resources, trainings, both free and paid ones in 2023. So we're going to send you some communications about what that is. Hopefully we'll see you another time. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I will see you next time round. Thank you.